Okay, I would like to welcome everyone to the 11th Annual Philadelphia and Western Suburbs Trail Summit.
Brian, can you put the sound up louder?
My name is Brian Barrett. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation for Haverford Township, and we'd like to welcome you to the CREC, our Community Recreation and Environmental Nature Center. The Recreation Department and the Friends of Haverford Trails began co-hosting a trail summit in 2013, the first year after we opened. Its twin goals were to highlight and discuss trail, cycling, and walking initiatives being undertaken in Haverford Township, and to inspire and promote our neighboring communities to do similar initiatives. Over the years, the momentum grew and it transformed into the Philadelphia Western Suburbs Trail Summit. With support from Delaware County and its newly formed Delaware County Trails Alliance, the summit grew again in 2021 to encompass all of Delaware County and neighboring counties. The Delco Trail Alliance was formed by County Council and the Delaware County Planning Department. That alliance brings together representatives from many existing trail groups to better coordinate, communicate, and serve trail access within Delaware County. We have Lane Schaefer here from County Council and Gina Barrett from the Planning Department in Delaware County, and they were very instrumental in getting that Trails Alliance started. And Rich Kerr is the one who's the chairperson for those meetings that we have quarterly, I guess. This summit will focus on trail and on-street bicycling, pedestrian improvements, and plans throughout Delaware County and the western suburbs of Philadelphia. Each year, the summit reviews progress from the previous year, identifies opportunities to improve walking, biking, and prioritize and plans continuing trail connections in our communities. I want to introduce Peter Puglianisis, who's in the back, and Rich Kerr of the Haverford Trails. They were very instrumental in getting these started back in 2013. They've been instrumental also in developing and expanding the trails in our township and making our community more bike friendly. I'd also like to introduce Eileen Matola, our Assistant Director. The three of them, Rich, Eileen, and Peter, help coordinate today's event. The success with trails in Haverford Township is a direct result of the citizen advocacy we have with Haverford Trails. Rich and Peter have been invaluable in developing our trail network, applying for grants, and leading volunteers as we blaze the trails over the last 10 to 15 years. Haverford Township is fortunate to have great support from an active friends group. Also want to introduce Jerry Hart. He's in the audience here. He's one of the 8th Ward Commissioner. He's also our Parks and Recreation liaison from the Board of Commissioners. Now I'm going to hand you off to Eileen Matola, who will introduce our first speaker.
Hi everyone. So before we start, I just want to tell all the speakers, hold the microphone close to your mouth. So that means the back can hear you. And then the other thing I want to tell you here is you can move your presentation along, and this is also a, what do you call those things when you light it up? A pointer, blazer. So you can do that too. Okay, so here we go. And I'm also going to give you a 5-minute warning, and questions, we would like them to be in your time slot, but if we see we're going too long, we'll save some of the questions till the end. Here we go. The first presentation is the Bike Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. We have Patrick Monahan and James Bergman and Eric Hartman. If you could just come on up. I don't know who's speaking first.
I'll kick us off.
Perfect.
Yep, thank you. Hey everybody, I'm Patrick Monahan. I'm the regional organizer of the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. I'm here today to kick us off with the circuit trails and an overview of the trails through the region, but I will be focusing more on the PA side of things. So with that, I will balance these two things. All right, introduction. So I wanted to kick us off with the Circuit Trails Coalition and what that is if you're not familiar with it. It's 60 plus organizations that come together. We meet monthly with the steering committee, and we discuss plenty of issues, but also opportunities to extend the circuit throughout the region. We also have a semi-annual meeting, which we meet twice a year, and it's open to anyone who's interested in hearing about progress that's made throughout the circuit. We also have circuit trails action teams. So these are our priority projects that we have for each county. You can see here in Bucks County, it's the Liberty Bell Trail. In Chester County, it's the CBT extension west into Lancaster. And in Delaware County, it's the 291 Road Diet, which I'll go into a little bit, which is also part of the East Coast Greenway. And then we have in Montgomery County, the Cross County Trail, the Germantown Bridge, which is a huge connection, expensive project. Same with Philadelphia, the Spring Garden Connector, which is shown there on the right, which is east to west connection from river to river. Very exciting project. And then here we have the 291 Road Diet, which I'm sure we'll go into more detail throughout today. But the idea is to take this road that is 66 feet wide and give it more space to cyclists and pedestrians to safely access the riverfront, but also to connect to Philadelphia and beyond, connecting to the East Coast Greenway, which is from Maine to Florida, full vision. So here we have the Circuit Trails Network. This is the latest information in terms of trail status. As you can see in green, it's existing. Orange is in progress. Pipeline is the purple there, and then the planned segments are in blue. A little louder. Oh, you can't hear me? Good? Oh, sorry about that. Thank you. All right, so next up, I have the trail status. Here we have 374 miles that are existing. In progress is 68, pipeline 119, and 268 miles in the planned process. This totals to 829 miles, and it keeps growing each year. So we're making gaps, or filling gaps and making connections. Here's a closer look to Delaware County Circuit Trails. I've highlighted there, and then I've identified the few trails that are a part of the circuit, which is only a few of the trails that make up the entire network for Delaware County, but each trail is moving along, whether they're in progress or moving forward, but existing as well. Okay. And with that, I'll go into some trails that were opened last year. So in Bucks County, the Newtown Rail Trail was opened, adding an additional 2.5 miles to the circuit. This connects to the Penny Pack in Montgomery County and also into Philadelphia, bridging the gap, making 18 continuous miles from Bucks County down to the Delaware River. And here's a picture of the trailhead in Southampton on the left, and then on the right is where the trail currently ends. Phase 2, extending into Newtown, has received funding to move forward with the study there, so making progress there. It's an exciting connection to come soon. Next up is Chester County Schuylkill River Trail, Parkerford to Route 422. This was the last segment of the Schuylkill River Trail for Chester County. And just north of that, connecting into Montgomery County, is the bridge crossing in 422. That's expected to open sometime in 2024. Once that's officially open, then riders can continue into Pottstown and eventually into Berks County to the north there. And here's a photo from our Explore the Circuit ride. To the left there, it's at Frick's Lock Trailhead, which is a really amazing trailhead. It's worth just checking out in its own with all the historic facilities. And then to the right there, it's kind of the loop around that leads to the 422 bridge towards the end of where the trail currently ends. And then next up is in Philadelphia, the Delaware River Trail, Spring Garden to Washington Ave, 1.9 miles. Huge gap there being filled, but also amazing infrastructure. And we'll go to the pictures here. So the one on the left, if you haven't ridden this yet, this is from the Ben Franklin Bridge, looking down. And then to the right there, it's another one of our Explore the Circuit rides where we're getting into the meat of the project before we take off. So exciting piece there. Okay, and then two more projects that were opened within the last year are the Darby Trail from Gillespie Park to Rosemount Ave. And then in Philadelphia, the Cobbs Creek Trail is continuing to extend down there to John Heinz. So great progress there as well. So what's in progress and in the pipeline? Probably the most highly anticipated segment right now is in Montgomery County, the Chester Valley Trail extension east, nearly 4 miles there, connecting from Chester County CBT, right around the King of Prussia Mall, and then north into the Schuylkill River Trail in Norristown. Here we have a little close zoom in, so the Trail Junction Center there is a part of the connection to the SRT next to the Norristown Transportation Center, and then taking the bridge south through Bridgeport takes you through the area down there, south to where it meets up with the trail currently, right south of the King of Prussia Mall there. So this is anticipated to open sometime soon. We will be hosting an Explore the Circuit ride to highlight this really important gap on the circuit. So more trails coming soon. In total, we're expecting around 10 miles of trail for 2023 and maybe into 2024. I've listed a few of them here, not including the CVT, which is the 4 miles, but here are a few of the trail segments coming up. And I've bolded the ones here in Delaware County, including the Newtown Square branch and the East Coast Greenway. And then you have some other ones there. But this also does not include the 2 additional miles in New Jersey, which are exciting connections as well. So if you wanted to get into that information, we do have an annual report that was recently published. And this covers kind of everything I just showed here, but a little more detail. When the presentation's up on the website, you can just click here, and it'll take you right to the report. We also have our Explore the Circuit rides coming up. Our first 3 are being scheduled for the spring. We're excited to host these. They come around April and then go into June, and then we come back in the fall. But for Celebrate Trails Day, which is held on April 22nd, we'll be kicking off that ride with the CVT. So keep an eye out for those details, and we're looking forward to having people out there. So how can you help? This is probably the most important slide here. You can be active as a circuit citizen. You can just click that link when you hop into the presentation. And we also have the action teams. So something that each county has, as I mentioned earlier, is we have a priority project, and we have actions surrounding those to move that segment forward. And join the Bike Delco Action Team, hosted by these guys and all the great work that they do. So with that, I will hand it over to Eric to get us started on the Delco Action Team.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Hartman with the Action Team for the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia, Delaware County affiliate, and I co-chair that with James Bergman, who will share a little bit in a moment as well. We'll go back and forth. As we get started, first of all, everybody hear me okay? Great. And I wanted to acknowledge, looks like in the room a lot of us remember William Safire, who used to write for the New York Times, and he was a presidential speechwriter for Richard Nixon. At some point, he had the responsibility of presenting a speech to the Association of Presidential Speechwriters. And though we're on a smaller scale here, I feel a little bit like that right now. There's some real giants in the room of trail advocacy, and I won't try to name them all, just really appreciative of lifetimes of work assembled here, and to Peter and Rich for hosting this summit again. So we're glad and honored to be here. What we do together, and it looks like I should grab this, is explore the region, thinking about through the lens of edges of possibility. And we are really intentional about doing a couple of things. One, we have fun. I really want to emphasize that. Bikes, the mission with the Bicycle Coalition is about having fun and making roads safe for bicycling for everybody. We work to do that in inclusive multi-municipality and cross-county ways. As you know, it's a crazy thing. 50 municipalities, right? That's a very difficult thing to get one's mind around. We've been systematic about trying to draw in multi-municipality, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And we're also, though we're presenting here today as ourselves, we're 2 white men, inclusivity is incredibly important to us. We are working very hard on that, and just thrilled that, for example, Upper Darby is one of the most diverse municipalities in the state. And we talk with many international folks actually who say, like, I used to get groceries on my bicycle, but I can't. You know, like, what wonderful allies to really present different ways of thinking than we have kind of settled in our space. So inclusive, multi-municipality, cross-county fun, and that work gives us special opportunities to really focus in on pinpointed advocacy. Because as you know, at a county level, you have to advocate in ways that collaborate with the municipalities, of which I still don't have my mind around all 50, but I know Aston makes some like really neat beer now too. So So that picture on the left is one of our Edges of Possibility rides. We do multi-municipality rides where we get to learn from the people in each municipality who have been making progress, and we check out some of the really cool facilities on street and on trail in different spaces. We were coming through Haverford on Carricong there on the left, and then we got a little presentation from Rich actually to learn about some of the history there. We ended up going through Upper Darby and then visiting in Lansdowne with Benjamin Hover, who's in the audience here today as well. Benjamin shared donuts with us, so we're Lansdowne fans now, and everybody on the ride. But it was a great refuel, and then we went through Yeadon, Upper Darby, jumped into Philly a bit, and came back around and learned from the folks in Narberth who have been doing excellent organizing as well. It's a fun journey together, a great way to spend an afternoon, but we really enhance our capacities to communicate and kind of network in that way.
All right. So, hi, I'm James Bergman. I'm the other co-chair of Bike Delaware County. I just wanted to put this graphic, this comparison up here, just because I find it really, really fascinating. Eric was talking about the many municipalities, and we have very different challenges here in Delco than we do in Philly in terms of connecting different areas by bike. This is the DVRPC connectivity study. And you can see here that Philly, theoretically, although plenty of Philly residents will dispute that, you can get from one part of Philly to another part relatively safely. On the other hand, if you're in Delaware County, you can see that there are a lot of these little islands of connectivity. You can bike around Media pretty easily. Where I live in Springfield, you can bike around Springfield, certain parts of Springfield. But to get to one place to another, you have to go on some pretty high-stress roads sometimes. So the question is then, what do we do about this? Basically, some of the things that are being done. Patrick talked about the circuit trails, and we're stand at the ready to help anyone push that forward in different municipalities if there's any kind of resistance. That's on the macro level. Delaware County is proposing its trail network, so on the meso level, you have a lot of different trails to connect different parts of Delaware County, which will enhance the meeting of different people from different places, and that's extremely important as well. And we're looking forward to providing bicyclists' perspective on a lot of these as well. But then you also have what Eric was talking about before. You have the edges of possibility and stitching together kind of low-stress rides in different parts of Delco. And that's definitely one of the things that we have been really trying to do in assembling the action team, is like sort of mining the hive mind of Delaware County biking and really see what people can have to offer, how people get around, how they're able to get around, and where are the big choke points where you really can't bike without going on a road that you would really rather not go on a regular basis. And certainly, I bike with my kids a lot of the time. I bike around town, but there are a lot of places where I wouldn't yet take my kids on a lot of roads. I will say that, why don't I turn that over to Eric, actually, again?
Just briefly on this slide, this is one of the benefits of biking around. You can talk with many bicyclists who live in Delaware County who still imagine that the only real progress has been in Philadelphia or other places they've traveled to, or they'll mention the shore. We're making progress, both in the city but also outside of the city. And this is a little bit of a step-by-step. I know the picture on the left, Radnor, that's not up to PennDOT standards, and neither is the Darby Creek bike lanes in Haverford Township, but they're both awesome steps that we should celebrate. So these are ways that townships are figuring out ways to step forward, really appreciative of, and we're just really glad to share and bike along those different routes with everybody.
All right, so basically, Eric was talking before about Delco having a lot of different municipalities. Philly, it's one city. There are definitely a lot of challenges with that, but also in Delco, we've got a lot of different places, a lot of different townships. So Lansdowne just created an amazing bike network. It ends as soon as you reach the border of Upper Darby. And Upper Darby is certainly very interested in creating a bike network. But the question is, how do we coordinate a lot of these different municipalities, and how do we do this on a grassroots level? So that's why we have created the Bike Delco Action Team. So instead of having one affiliate who maybe knows Haverford Township, like Eric knows extremely well, we have recruited a lot of different people from different parts of Delaware County. So we have someone from Bethel Township, someone from Media, Haverford, Glen Olden, Collingdale. And all of these different people have different experiences in terms of biking in these different areas. However, you will also notice that there are certain spots, certain holes in our network. We definitely have some holes in the western part of Delco, which is also the one that's the hardest to connect by bike. And we have some holes, we don't yet have representation in Delaware County's only city. So those of you who are interested in joining or would like to join, you can email Bike Delco. And if you know people from these areas who would like to join, definitely point them our way. So what do we do? And how do we bring more people in? Well, we have outreach events. We just had, on November 12th, we had our first bike rodeo. We partnered with Youth Development United in Chester, and we had a bike rodeo on the Chester waterfront. And we also had a bike giveaway. So we gave away about 40 bikes at that point. And we made the cover of the Delco Times, which was also pretty, we have now, so we hit the big time, really. But it was great too, because we had Dan Pascal from the East Coast Greenway Project giving people information on the East Coast Greenway, which runs right by there. We had Patrick giving people information on the 291 road diet. We had me making sure the kids didn't crash into each other when they veered off the rodeo course. And also, but we all were able to provide information to this community about some of the improvements that are coming and hear about some of the challenges in terms of biking in the area. So, okay, thank you. Good, we're actually almost ahead of time. So, so yes, we're also planning a second one in May, so mark your calendars. So yeah, Chester Waterfront, it should be really interesting. We're implementing a lot of the lessons learned from last time. The other thing we do, and Eric mentioned rides, and he's going to tell you a little bit about a couple of the rides.
This is back to the Edges of Possibility idea. That's a photo from one of our mainline Greenway rides, which I realize is mostly in Montgomery County. This speaks to the edges of possibility. You know, as a bicyclist, you want to be able to go places. You want to be able to go to the places in your life. So it doesn't really matter that in the late 17 or early 1800s, somebody imagined townships based on horses, right? So we're just trying to do connectivity work. The connectivity work you see here, the pictures actually, in any case, are from the mainline Greenway ride. I just want to call out, like, children are involved, people of all ages are involved, and we're having a good time there. And the picture on the left is from a ride we did based on a, oh, I'm sorry, that's that same ride. So we're doing the western portion of the mainline Greenway. If you don't know about the mainline Greenway, I won't go into it now, but mainlinegreenway.bike is a great resource. Another ride we did together, we've had some great partnerships with Student Club at Haverford College. Many of you participated there. I work at Haverford College, and it's also kind of a central through point that we're trying to work with the college to make sure it's thinking and planning over the long term about just people moving through in terms of this sustainability efforts as part of a fabric. And great partnerships with Trek and Merion coming through as well.
All right, and then we do other rides too, which we actually did a ride back in June that one of our members actually suggested and stitched together herself. And we found a lot of really great roads that through in eastern Delaware County, from Collingdale up to Haverford. And so it is definitely possible, it is bikeable. We found some low-cost solutions that might make it a little bit more bikeable. And then we found some areas that really do need some intervention. And those are areas that actually do track with some of the Penn Environment Council trail priorities, like Upper Darby, trying to get off, through past Garrett Road over by Upper Darby High School. That was a tough pinch point right there. Also, areas around Springfield Road that are very difficult to ride up and cross if you're a bicyclist. And so these are things that we actually reported on a little bit on our blog. So we actually had a really good time there. You can see we're riding up Steel Road, we're riding up Bridge Street, and then it was raining a little bit, but it didn't deter us too much. But then I think and then we're going to have another ride this spring that's going to try to connect the Liper Smedley and the Chester Creek trails, and then circle back around around Granite Run and those places. So really like looking at the different trail networks and how we can actually stitch those together on the grassroots micro level. We do a lot of advocacy work, and we plan on doing significantly more as new projects come into the pipeline. The Don Guanella property, for instance, is amazing. It's a central location. It's near various trails in Delaware County, and it's being built right now. We want to make sure that that is bikeable and walkable, and we had a set of recommendations for that. Because you can see it's also sandwiched between some pretty high-stress areas, high-stress roads, which we want to make sure are turned into low-stress bikeways. All right, and Eric is going to talk about another project that he worked on.
I'll just be brief and as a way of bringing it back together and saying we appreciate the local opportunities that come along with having an action team that includes representatives from townships. So I'm in Haverford Township, and we've recently been part of working with the Environmental Advisory Council of the township. There was a similar kind of set of concerns that came from the Friends of Haverford Trails and the college, actually. But we worked together with a number of neighbors to articulate values related to bicycle access, pedestrian access, mass transit access in a petition that we put forward that we shared with our representatives, going up to the PennDOT proposal, which is a road diet for Haverford Road, which is interesting for everyone who wants a decrease in car accidents, which would be a huge plus. And we're trying to make sure to use our voices and networks to advocate for its kind of maximum inclusion of people-powered movement as well. And there's a blog on overview on that on the Bicycle Coalition website also. Happy to talk more about it. Please give us an email or say hello if you'd like to be involved. We are movement building and really excited to do rides with everyone who wants to, and getting on a shared list helps us kind of coordinate and support. And the last thing I'll say, so many in the room have really done years of mapping of the pinch points, et cetera. As the Bicycle Coalition, we get to just do the strong advocacy, right? And there are parts of my life where I'm in a mediator role or a et cetera role, but the coalition wants to make places safe for bikes. So it's a place to join in or ask us to raise the voice if you need to be kind of a mediator role in your community, but you want some push. That's what we're here for. Thank you all for the opportunity to be here.
Okay, that was great. We're going to save, if you have any questions for them, we'll save them to the end so we can just stay on time. The next presenter is from Delaware County. We have Elaine Schaefer, Steve Beckley, and Gina Barrett. Again, just try to keep the microphone up.
Got it?
Okay.
Got it. All right. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Elaine Schaefer from Delaware County Council, and I am so excited to be here. This is one of my favorite conferences. I feel like I am among my people here. And every time I come here, I learn about a new trail. That I think I know all the trails, and I always learn about a new one. So I'm thrilled to be here. Now, I'm going to give a very general overview of what's happening in Delaware County right now from the county perspective. But then my colleagues from our staff are going to give all the details and go through some slides. Now, you may remember about 3 or 4 years ago, I stood up here, and my colleagues and I, when we were running for office, we made some pretty aggressive plans and promises, some pretty outrageous promises. Chief among them was that we were going to invest in an open space and trails program in Delaware County, and we were going to make it a robust and a real and a continuing program and catch up with our neighbors. And I am happy to report that we are well on our way to achieving that goal. It has been a very productive 3 years since we've been here. And that has to do with really 2 ingredients: people and money. I'm going to start with the people. We have assembled an incredible team in Delaware County. I'm going to start with our staff. We have a new planner, a new head of planning, Gina Burrett, who you're going to meet in a moment, who's just incredible. We're so lucky to have found her. Somehow or other, we hoodwinked Peter Williamson, the one and only Peter Williamson from NLT, to join us. We have Kathy Spar, who is just this incredibly passionate active transportation planner who has joined us. And she also has a voracious appetite for grant funding, finding grant funding, which is incredible. And then we have an existing staff of Tom Schaefer and Steve Beckley and Ann Stauffer, who have been working on this forever, laid the groundwork without ever having given resources. And now we're finally getting the resources. And then we have a reinvigorated Parks Department under the leadership of Mark Manfrey, so invested in our trails and our open spaces and parks. So it's really the dream team that we have assembled here to make things happen. Outside of our staff, we have appointed this great little army of volunteers who have been working for 3 years. That is our Green Space Task Force, led by Ann Hutchinson right now. And they have single-handedly, with the help of our staff and our consultant, Ann Toole, put together an incredible grant program that is working beautifully, which you will hear more about. And then the Trails Alliance, which, half the people in this room are in our Trails Alliance, and thank you for helping. But that's a group of people who are like regional leaders, led by Rich Kerr, that get together and do some like higher level strategic planning and coordinating. So that is helping as well. So taking all those people together, all those forces, that talent, that passion, all of it would be for naught but for the second ingredient. And the second ingredient is the money. And I'm happy to say we have definitely put our money where our mouth is in these first 3 years. First, we invested $23 million in using the power of eminent domain to save 213 acres at the former Don Guanella site. But we've also invested in our own county assets, the the Darby Creek Trail expansion, the Chester Creek Trail expansion, working towards the East Coast Greenway, and investing in our parks. We have a lot of capital money going into Rose Street Park, and more importantly, into Upland Park and Little Flower Manor, which are located in our communities that are more vulnerable and typically underserved. We also invested in a new return on investment study, which is an incredibly important tool for making the case when you go into all of these communities that trail building and open space is an economic development effort, and we have proof for it. Local proof, case studies in our own county. Then finally, the most important investment that we have made so far is in our Greenways Grants program. We're now in our third round. Almost every single one of our 49 municipalities has participated. We've given out almost $17 million, which has been doubled in match. 244 acres conserved. You can see the numbers up here, 13 miles of trails. It's been an incredible success. And our municipalities were so hungry for this. And the other beautiful thing about this program that we set up is that we made it no match, because many of our municipalities do not have budgets, and they need this money as match money to go get DCNR money or DCED money. So, so far so good on this program. We intend to keep investing in it every single year, and we are catching up with our neighbors. Now, I cannot wait for the next few years to come where we can continue to make progress without a pesky pandemic slowing us down, which we have all suffered through, and working together with all of you to continue our success. Now, I am very, very pleased to introduce to you Gina Burrett, who is our new head of planning. She comes to us from AD Marble, where she was a manager, the project senior manager there. She's also the vice president of the board of the DVRPC, where she holds the seat appointed by the governor. and she has already had a great impact on our work. So Gina, take it away.
All right, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. It's been a great 3 months at my time so far, so I'm still in listening mode and working with my amazing staff and the county and all of the partners that we deal with across the region. It's been a great experience for me. I am a Haverford Township resident, so I've spent many days, many Saturday mornings here at the Haverford Reserve, cheering on my kids in the gym or on the soccer fields. So I'm happy today to be here in a slightly different role, but still cheering on the trails and the open space work that's been happening in the county by all of you wonderful people. So I get the privilege of picking out about a couple different projects today that are very, very exciting. First is Delaware County's new park. As was mentioned, the county preserved 213 acres back in 2021 to preserve it keep it from being developed, and also to preserve the important ecological resources that exist within this park. We also want it to be a hub for the trail network in the region. As shown on the map in the little insert, it's a little small, I'm sorry, but it is a centrally located park. So we want this park to be welcoming to all people across the region, across the county. We want it to be welcoming and inclusive to everyone. So, in keeping with that, a very important part of that is public outreach, which is the stage that we're in during the master planning process that we're in now. We're in the public involvement stage. We have a 15-member advisory committee that is working with us on all facets of the project and each stage of the project. They meet monthly. There were over 300 applicants to that advisory committee, so that was very exciting. We tried to pick people who represented all areas of the county, all demographics, socioeconomic, racial, ethnic, so that we had a very diverse group of people that represented the cross-section of Delaware County. Because as I've mentioned, and I will mention several times, we want this to be a park for all county residents. So they're meeting monthly. We had our first open house. I know I saw several of you there on January 14th. We had a wonderful attendance at that meeting. We got a lot of really great feedback. We are working with a consulting company with Tool Recreation and their wonderful experience, as well as on their team is JMT, Urban Partners, and Natural Lands. So we're very lucky to have a very experienced team working on this project. The next step, we are working on a pop-up series of events, 3 to 4. We're working on it right now to determine some of the areas that we didn't have as much representation for at the open house, going out to meet them where they are. So we're working on a schedule, and that'll be posted hopefully in the next couple weeks. As part of that as well, we're doing an online survey. That should hopefully be ready to go this week as well, so it's a very busy time right now for us. And that will help also to get additional feedback for people who might be not able to attend in-person meetings. And then also coming up is a Name the Park contest that we'll be doing that will also be advertised to. So it's very, very busy time. And then once we get through this first round, the next steps are to develop some design concepts. But to go in a little bit more, sorry, I got cut off, but one of the other important parts of the project is what's out there. So a preliminary site assessment was completed. This is one of the slides from that. And it shows some of the areas of what's out there. So it's mainly 2 stream corridors and the oldest forest, the largest forest in eastern Delaware County. And those are areas we definitely want to preserve and protect. And then there's also the campus area, which is where all the buildings on the site are located. So in addition to that, there are existing trails that have just sort of been created over time. So we've tried to map most of them. I'm sure there's some other little spurs that we don't have shown on here, but it does show most of them. And as mentioned, I think in some of the previous conversations, really trying to make sure that this is a multimodal access to this park is really important to the county so that people can get there by transit, by bike, by pedestrian access. So part of that is how do we link to other parks, to other trails, in the area, namely the Darby Creek Trail, is a very important one that we need to figure out access to. I also live off the Darby Creek Trail, so as a resident, that's very important to me. So these are just some very, very preliminary ideas. There are a lot of steep slopes on the former Don Guanella site property, so that's something that we'll have to think and consider as we develop some options. But that is definitely a priority, and we'd love input, feedback, ideas on linkages to other trails in the area. I think that's it. So I will leave it there, but hopefully at the end we'll have time for questions, comments, and if not, please reach out to the planning department. We really want everyone's feedback right now. Is the perfect time for that. The next steps, as I mentioned, will be developing design concepts based on the feedback we received in the first round. We will then go out and do a second round of public outreach, showing those potential options, getting feedback again from across the county, probably similar system as we've done in this first round, and then we'll put that together in a master plan. The master plan is expected to be finalized hopefully June of this year. So a lot of work to do in a very short period of time. So I'm now going to hand it over to Steve Beckley. He's going to talk about some of our current county trail projects.
Thank you very much. I'm going to talk about a few of our projects we're working on at the planning department relating to trails. Here are 4 projects that we're currently focusing on at the planning department. The Chester Creek Trail, Darby Creek Trail, the Media Smedley Connector Trail, and the East Coast Greenway. The Chester Creek Trail originally started with a 2002 feasibility study that was initiated by the Friends of the Chester Creek branch. It's a 6.5-mile study area, but it's currently being tackled in multiple phases. And the length of the trail is a former rail line that is a leased area from the county in segments. It's not completely leased by the county, but the original segment and phase 2 that we're working on now are leased from SEPTA. So this is phase 1 that opened in spring 2017. Can't hear me? I'll speak more directly in. Sorry about that. But that was a long time coming, and it was a cooperative effort between the Friends of the Chester Creek branch and the county, the planning department. Opened in spring 2017. It is a 10-foot wide trail. This is the entrance to the main trailhead parking area out on Knowlton Road, and looking off to the side of it, that is an area that the county is planning to expand the trailhead, and I think that would be very welcome from the users of the trail, as it was constructed undersized. It is 10 spots, but more people even park there than that. They park to the side of the driveway, and there's an area to the side that there's room on the easement to expand it. Shows the existing parking on the right and the proposed parking on the left, so it has the potential on this concept to be expanded to 48 spaces. But this is just conceptual. We need to do final design, and we're hoping to move into that this year, and then work on getting funding assistance for the construction. This is the phase 2, which is south of the existing phase 1, so it continues and crosses the creek just at Chester Creek Road and then into Aston Township. It's about 1.5 miles south to a terminus at Bridgewater Road. It would potentially have 2 parking areas along it that themselves probably wouldn't be very big, like that expanded parking lot I just showed you, and it has 1 major at-grade road crossing at Dutton Mill Road. And this is a concept that our designer at Wilson Consulting Group has drawn up for that road crossing. And we had a public meeting on November 3rd in Aston Township, and one of the things that they most wanted to hear about was what we were planning for this road crossing, because it is a safety concern there. And we're designing a a refuge island in the middle and a few different safety devices, some signage and lights, flashing lights. And here's what it shows as a profile view.
And just the angles for bicycles.
Yeah, this is an example of a similar crossing in Harrisburg on their Greenbelt trail there. So if you're approaching from downstream going north, there would be a sharp curve in the trail. So that would help people to slow down, and maybe even some chicane gates or bollards there. And there's signage if you're approaching on the trail, and there's signage when you're approaching vehicular from either direction on the road. And then when you get to the middle, you're on the refuge island, and that's what it looks like there. So I think that would calm both the bikers and allow it to feel safer as you're crossing, so you wouldn't have to cross both lanes at once. Moving to the Darby Creek Trail, our study was in 2009, so it's starting to get a little older now. But we have been moving ahead on various phases, both at the county and then the municipalities are also working on different segments. This shows the 5-mile length of that study area. So at the north, the most upstream segment, Upper Darby Township's working on that. And some of these segments, if you were to zoom in and examine this line, the trail is not exactly on that line anymore. It has been designed and realized that it should be a little moved to one side of the creek or the other, or a little different off of this line. So in Gillespie Park, it's a little different there. Phase 1 is the blue line there. It's on Creek Road and in Kent County Park, and around the corner there. There's a section there that needs some reconstruction. We're considering that at the county now to work on that. It was damaged in the 2020 tropical storm. Phase 2, we're working very hard on now at the county on some appraisals for that. I think the next slide is on that. But further down, I think there's other presenter here that will be talking about the Lansdowne Gateway Trail and the Scottdale Road Bikeway project. But that leads down to what we're calling Phase 3 that we're going to be focusing more on in our work program this year and in the coming years, to try to analyze more closely and to pick up where that 10-year-old study left off and re-examine the right-of-way and a design project. Yeah, this is the end of the existing trail going downstream where we're hoping to do some final design and secure right-of-way. This was from the feasibility study that we finished last year that had 5 different concepts, and 2 pairs of them are on the same lines there, either going around the commercial building there that has been redeveloped into the Lidl and Big Lots in Clifton Heights. We're currently doing some appraisals so that we can talk more seriously in negotiating with that commercial landowner. Now the Media Smedley Connector Trail, we did a feasibility study at the county in 2020, and we moved ahead with Phase 1 of that trail after we received some transportation alternative set-aside funding in January of last year. That was a $450,000 funding assistance for the development of the trail, but before we move forward with that, we have to do final design. So we contracted with Navarro and Wright firm. So that section you see, that small section in the eastern end of Media Borough is what we're working on now. And this is Providence Road on the bottom where it turns up to Front Street. Providence Road will be an off-road multi-use trail, a side path, 8 foot wide, and then on Front Street it will be one direction, share the road, and then the other direction going west it will be a dedicated bike lane, and with pedestrians on a rebuilt sidewalk. And I'll turn it back to Gina to discuss the East Coast Greenway.
Thanks, Steve. It's been a very exciting week in Delaware County in regards to the East Coast Greenway. So excited to share some new developments that have happened this week. I know Councilwoman Schaefer is very excited about some of them. So in Delaware County, as I'm sure many of you know, the East Coast Greenway is planned to go along the riverfront area along the Delaware River. Some of the sections have been built, the majority is still needs to be developed. So, as part of that process, the county has, kind of at the insistence of PennDOT, created the Route 291 Road Diet Study. And we have Kittleson on board to do this study. And that kicked off, the project kicked off this week with a stakeholder event. We took a whole group of diverse stakeholders out to the 291 study area, mainly in the city of Chester, a little bit into Trainer. And then we'll also connect with a portion in Ridley, which I'll kind of get into in a little bit. The group, we did a field view, drove around, walked around the corridor, saw the issues. The 291 in the city of Chester is a very large roadway. I know you saw this picture earlier. And it's a dragway, basically. There's not many lights along it, so people, go as fast as they can in between the lights that there are. It's very wide, so it makes you feel like you should be going faster than you really should be. There's a lot of truck traffic, so trying to cross this roadway is not safe. You definitely don't want kids trying to cross. I don't want to cross. So there is currently out there 2 lanes in each direction, a center turn lane that is, through pretty much the entire corridor, a little shoulder on one side. The other side is mainly a parking area. If you do park along there, trying to get out of the door on the driver's side is extremely dangerous. This, is being kind in that there's not a lot of traffic out there in this particular photo, but it's a very unsafe corridor. So this project has a very robust community engagement process associated with it, with the residents, with the business owners, because there is a lot of industrial businesses, obviously along the riverfront. So engaging with them as well as other stakeholders in the community to figure out, what are the needs, what are the issues. Kittleson's also looking very closely at traffic data, crash history data, using all of that they'll come up with alternatives. Those alternatives will go through, again, a very robust community engagement process to put together the ultimate plan, which is anticipated or will be done in October of this year. You've also seen this picture. This is just a concept. This is not one that, we've moved any forward, but just an idea of what could be out there. Obviously trying to find a good location for the East Coast Greenway in this area is a key part of this study. So there'll be more to come on that, but that's very exciting, and there really is a lot of interest and enthusiasm across the board. Maybe not quite so much from PennDOT, but hopefully they're on board, and we're trying to move them along in the process. So the big news this week, that we had a meeting earlier this week with PennDOT, and they surprised everybody. So this is the section in Ridley Township. You're looking eastbound, Boeing on both sides. The Conrail line is a little hard to see, but it's on the right. They are doing a drainage improvement project, the 291 Industrial Highway Drainage Improvement Project. And we had this meeting, and they told us they are going to move the roadway further north, to the north a little bit, to provide more access, more land to put in the East Coast Greenway in this section. So that was very big news. It was very exciting. It was very unexpected. So they're going to shift it up to the north. At this time, they're saying we don't have the plans yet, so we are waiting for them. We will be following up with them regularly until we do receive the actual plans. But right now they're saying they can only fit in an 8-foot trail, not quite circuit standard, but it is on the south side that eliminates the need to cross a lot of different roadways. And it's
to the left?
Yes, correct. North is to the left. It creates, so it'll be Conrail, Trail, Swale, all in the green area, and the road will be a little bit further north, so there'll be a little bit more green area. Thank you. Sorry. I'll wrap it up, almost done. This one's very exciting. So the 8-foot, we don't feel like, we're not going to get into too much of an issue on that. We will keep trying to push them towards, getting a little closer to 10 if they can. but it does create a safer condition being on the south side, being on the right side of this particular picture, to avoid a lot of those conflicts with roadways and those types of things. So we will be keeping on top of them, and then we'll get the plans, and then that will link up with our 291 road diet study as well. So we'll look at, their PennDOT's just sort of clearing the path, creating the space, and it's up to the county and trail folks like yourselves to figure out, how to get the actual trail built in this area. Just a few quick other things with the East Coast Greenway in the county, Marcus Hook area. For this one, Route 13, PennDOT is repaving the roadway, and as a part of that process, they will be restriping the East Coast Greenway bike lanes in that section. And then Middletown Township is doing a feasibility study for the East Coast Greenway, thanks to the Bilco Greenway grant that they received from the county. So we look forward to seeing the results of that study. And that's it for our overall presentation. Just wanted to point out some of the links to our sustainability website and also to our planning website. We do have a lot of GIS data, other data that's available to everyone, to the public, to municipalities. So please use the data as you may see fit. And my email address, Steve's email address, please reach out. We want to be partners in all of your projects. We want to help where we can. We want to have conversations about trails, future trails. How can we help as the county? How can we help move trails forward? Is there meetings that we should be convening with other groups? We want to be part of that process. So please reach out if you have any questions, concerns, and really excited to hear the rest of the presentations, and we really thank you for your time today. And I guess we don't have time for questions.
We have like 2 minutes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question. A lot of this is all about the trails. Do you guys have plans about pedestrian access to things? I don't know, are there things that you're working on in terms of walking access?
Gina, repeat the question.
Okay. Yes. So the question was, are there plans currently for pedestrian access to areas of the county, to train stations, those types of things? I don't think we have anything great right now, and maybe the RPC has done some studies on that, but it's definitely an area for us for growth and to look into additionally. Accessibility is one of the things we've been talking a lot with SEPTA about, and creating accessible train stations. So as part of that process, we would look further into how can we help get people to the train stations other than cars.
And you have the sidewalk inventory online, right?
Yes, there is a sidewalk inventory online that I think DVRPC probably helped with.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Okay, you know what? There are 2 more questions. We can do them quickly. Go ahead.
Following what he just said, it seems that a lot of these trails are for recreational use, but what he's suggesting is actually, like functional day-to-day use. Because, I think we should guys think about that.
Yeah, agreed. We do have a planner's portfolio on active transportation that will be coming out sometime in the next couple months, and we are looking to create an active transportation plan for the county. That active transportation, I'm sure you all know, but is looking at how is pedestrians, bicyclists, how do commuters, how to use that as a commuting option, not just as a recreation option, as you mentioned. A lot of these do have to deal with trails, but we are looking to put together a plan on active transportation within the county. I don't have a time frame on that. That's just something we're starting to really look into. But as Councilwoman Schaefer had mentioned, Kathy Spar in the planning department is very, very interested on that. So we are starting to put together a time frame, getting that into our overall work program. So it will be something that we will be looking at, hopefully in the very near future. And hopefully we can come back and share the results of that once that is done. So.
Yeah, do one more.
Is there many areas in Delaware County
yeah, I think that's where this active transportation plan will play a role, as well as we are in the, we are also working, we have some RFPs in for a Vision Zero plan, which will focus on how can we make pedestrian and bicycle, movements safer in the county. That said, we have RFPs in. We have interviews this coming week with the various consulting teams, and so we will be that will be moving forward too. So we do see the Vision Zero plan and the active transportation plan as critical to moving exactly what you're saying. There are a lot of areas I won't walk. There's a lot of areas I won't let my kids walk. So more to come on that for sure. It is an area that we need to expand into, and we are actively looking into that right now. So again, we'll report back on both the Vision Zero, which is moving. It'll move ahead because that's where we're already there. We just need to get the consultant on board, and then the active transportation plan. We are starting to lay the framework for that, but we do have a planner's portfolio on that talks about the needs and what is active transportation, why are the health benefits, the environmental benefits, just the benefits to communities when people can walk to places and not have to rely on their cars.
Great, thank you. Okay, great, thank you. Thanks, Steve, Elaine, Gina. Okay, next up we have from Haverford Township, we have Matthew Bauman and Emily Pisano. And if you're not speaking, you can sit right there. I don't want you, or actually, this lady just set up a nice chair for you.
Let's give it back a little bit.
Morning, thank you.
Good morning, just keep it up.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Again, I'm Matt Bauman, manager of Haverford Township. This is Emily Pisano, assistant manager of Haverford. We're relatively new here, 9 months and 10 months at Haverford, but so far so good. Agenda today, basically broken up into 4 sections. We're going to talk about the history, long history on this project, the location of it. The big one here is the grant easement acquisition, and then next steps. So where did the walkable Haverford idea come from? There's a master plan from 2015 that really opened it up and talked about a lot of things. There were a lot of concepts. There was a bridge down in the village of Haverford. There was landscaping in the middle of Baltimore Pike for traffic calming to bring a sense of place to the village that had been pretty much auto-dominated through the decades. So there was a wish list. We had a lot of stakeholder meetings. And then what happened? PennDOT came in and said, no, 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 yes, no. And then, so we narrowed it down, and the concept came to connect what we call culture and history, and really commerce as well, from the Brandywine battlefield, Painter's Folly, which the township now owns, which we'll talk about, and then a 3/4 mile segment that brings it all the way down into the village, past our township building. So, Emily, I believe you're up next with our goals.
The main goal of Walkable Haverford is to connect residents, businesses, and the visitors of Haverford to the culture and history of the township, as Matt had just said, particularly within the village area in a safe and pedestrian-friendly way. Along the 3/4 of a mile that Walkable Haverford covers, residents and visitors will have access to the Brandywine Museum of Art, the Brandywine Battlefield, the Sanderson Museum, and the Haverford Historical Society, and a variety of shops and restaurants within the village. As all those who have ever traveled on Route 1 are aware, cars tend to fly through the village area without ever realizing the culture and history that they're passing through. And Walkable Haverford will help highlight the many layers of culture and history throughout the township, from historic battles to acting as an inspiration to N.C. Wyeth, Andrew, and Jamie Wyeth. And painters.
So, spend a couple of moments on these slides here. So, this is the village here, what we call the village, but it is very dangerous. We have some restaurants, people cross the street there. We do have a pedestrian crossing. But this is the heart of it right here, and where it's dominated with vehicles, and particularly trucks, that speed through, and I'll show you the next slide on the location of the trail. But to the far east, this is the township. We purchased Painter's Folly in 2018, which is right next to the Brandywine battlefield. And why did the township purchase this? Andrew Wyeth, up in this room here, spent 20 years painting. A lot of famous works came out of this room, and particularly up in the Belvedere here. And these are things I didn't know until I came on board when I toured the house, that his paint's still on the floor it's pretty remarkable, actually. And then the Conservancy has over 7,000 Andrew Wyeth pieces, and there's a current, if anybody can get down there until, there's a current Andrew Wyeth display, or that I think is there until July 13th of pieces that have never been shown before, but it's pretty remarkable. Anyway, so that's the purpose of Walkable Chadds Ford, is not only it's a multimodal trail, but it's also it's really connecting. We get a lot of tourists, and I think we spoke about it. They can't get anywhere. They just have to drive. So we want them to get out of their cars and enjoy the area. So here's the location. So battlefield to the east, and this is where you get to as you're heading to 202 up here. Township building, Painter's Follies right here. It's 3/4 of a mile, cross one, work your way down. It's going to be an 8-foot path, asphalt, and then here is the village. You head north to the Historical Society, and then here is the Conservancy right here. So it's not the longest trail in the world, but it is, and we just talked about it. It's addressing a concern about, getting places without your car. You just have to. Do you have to drive everywhere? Yes, you do. But here it helps.
Now,
It helps with that connection.
Just background. Route 1, how many lanes?
4 lanes,
And what's the official speed limit?
45,
And how fast do people really go?
65 to 85.
So they don't see Chadds Ford at all.
No. You pass, and especially with this is a green light. The red, it's predominantly east-west bound, so trucks, cars, they don't stop. They just. So this will help. This will help with traffic calming, bicyclists, that sense of place. That hey, I live in downtown Wayne near there, and so when you get to there, buildings are closer. It's a natural traffic calming, and the more people you have, the more bicycles you have, etc. It slows people down. That's the thinking.
I think
of
the other
this.
important point for people is that your village is totally surrounded by Conservancy land.
It is. It's pretty remarkable. It's all Conservancy. It's all Brandywine Conservancy, and they own a lot of land. So they're a critical partner with us in this. Emily, are you next to me? Sit up.
So here we have existing and future trails within the township that will connect to walkable Chadds Ford. The Harvey Run Trail, which is the first 2 photos you see, was established through a partnership of Chadds Ford Township and the Brandywine Conservancy and Museum of Art. It is 0.91 mile natural trail and connects township-owned property with property owned by the Conservancy. Since the Harvey Run Trail opened in 2017, it has been used by residents and local trail groups on an almost daily basis. When walkable Chadds Ford is complete, it will be easy for people to connect between the Harvey Run Trail on South Creek Road and walkable. Then the last photo there is a map of the Octoraro Trail and where it will run through Chadds Ford Township. It is part of Delaware County's primary trail network and will not only extend the regional trail network into far western Delaware County, but also connect Chadds Ford and Concord Townships, the Harvey Run Trail, and walkable as well. In 2022, so just last year, the Chadds Ford Township Board of Supervisors unanimously approved a feasibility study for the Octoraro Trail for phases 1 and 2. The study, drafted by Pannoni, was a collaborative effort between Chadds Ford Township and the Brandywine Conservancy. The Octoraro Trail feasibility study breaks the trail into 2 phases, with phase 1 running between Route 202 and Hayburn Road and serving to connect Concord and Chadds Ford Townships. Phase 2 runs between Ring Road and Creek Road and will connect to the Brandywine Museum. We are currently seeking grant opportunities for this trail and are looking forward to moving forward with it.
So the grant section, there were three parts, our three parts. The feasibility was $109,000. We paid for that, along, thankfully, with a grant from the William Penn Foundation and the Brandywine Conservancy. Again, it gets back to that partnership there. Design and engineering is with Simone Collins. That's $263,900, and Delaware County, that was funded through the Greenways grant. So thank you to Delaware County. Construction, we hope to begin this spring. That's $3.1 million. That's a TASA grant, DCED grant, DCNR grant, and Delaware County Greenways grant. So thank you to all of our partners for those funding. Trails, I think everyone in this room, we all love trails. It's great, but the challenge a lot of the time, especially with this project for us, with the easement acquisition. So we had 8 separate property owners to work with to secure where the path will go, the trail. Elaine, is Elaine still here? Hi. So Radnor Trail, how long did that take? 20 years? That's one, that was with PennDOT, right? Well, it took forever, you know. I came on, it was almost 20 years ago, you know. So it took forever. It takes time, but you know, and a lot of it is the hesitancy for something new, something that changes. There's fear, there's misunderstandings and things, but what you're really doing, we all know that, is that you're adding value. You're adding value to the area, housing values, etc. It's families like that, families like trails. So it's a learning curve, but we secured recently all eight are done. We got them recorded, so we're almost there. And it was easy for me because this started in 2016, and I've been here 9 months, and I'm like, well, we've got a lot done, right? So it's patience. It's patience and sticking with it and working closely with our board of supervisors and the property owners on that. So far so good. Next steps will include the PennDOT approval of recorded easements. PennDOT's the sort of the end all be all with this. And construction, like I said, will begin shortly, and we're hoping for a fall 2023 completion if all goes well. So 6 months, expecting, but we'll see. There's always delays. I'm thinking spring of 24, but we'll see. And do we have anything else? I think that's it. There's the village right there. I encourage anyone, please feel free to stop by, down the village, at the Conservancy, and then also stop by the Township building. And we have, for Painter's Folly, if anybody wants to take a tour, we have a caretaker in the back. Helen Sapala was the longtime family in there, and she's still in the back, and she gives tours. She loves to talk about Andrew Wyeth, loves Andrew Wyeth. So, do we have time for questions?
Yeah.
I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to thank you, the Friends of the Chester Creek Branch and the Friends of the Octorara Branch, 28 years ago, had a vision to connect those two trails, and there was a lot of opposition
Yes.
back then, and I'm glad to see that we finally came to this, and finally there's going to be a trail, and hopefully connect to the Chester Creek Trail.
Great, yes, great idea. Thank you.
There's one more question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned property owner hesitance. What were those things and how did you deal with it?
So, thankfully, I believe 5 of the property owners had one single attorney to work with, and then the other 3 had their own attorneys. So there was work coordination with our solicitor. You have to do, the property valuations. There's side agreements. So some wanted landscaping, some wanted a gate installed. So one property owner, that took time because we had to get quotes. It just brings, because I live right next to the Radnor Trail, and the fear was that there was going to be a lot of crime. There's a lot of when something new comes in, and it's like a land development project or something. It's a learning curve. You have to stick with it, and at the end of the day, You know, do you want to go eminent domain? No, you don't. That's a last option, but it's always there, but thankfully we didn't have to do that. That's the biggest hurdle. And with the Octo Railroad Trail we talked about, we have one, it's Pico. You know, it's hopefully it'll be straightforward, but you know, the more property owners, the more complex it gets. Hey, Bob.
What we found in 20 years of rapid trail negotiations, frankly, and see benefit. Thank you, I'm sorry. What we found in rapid trail negotiations, all 82 now,
Yeah.
people began to see benefits to themselves. I'm familiar with this area. What benefits did the owners see out there in favor of granting easement or just having a trail?
So it came down to, that's a very good question. It came down to not only the enhanced value of it, but we have some newer families, particularly on the north side of the village. And one of their comments by the Historical Society is that we walk to the village a lot. We've got young kids, but we had to walk on the shoulder. So there's a lot of restaurants down there. So that's a benefit from them. They go Friday nights, they eat pizza at this one place, they walk. So they always had to drive. So a gas station, Jim Leader's service station, hesitant, especially after Ida. Ida destroyed a lot of the village because of the Brandywine Creek. So they were in the middle of rebuilding, COVID, et cetera. So there's fear of loss of business. Perhaps there's delays during construction or impediments to customers coming and going. So once you get through that hurdle, then they start to understand, you know. Plus, you know, they're getting it's basically free, you know, through taxpayer money. It's landscaping, it's benefits to them, you know, new signage, those types of things. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of hurdles, but you know, it just starts, you know, this in a long time. It's just a misunderstanding at first, and then you start to work through the issues, and you know, then we get on the same page. Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, you mentioned that family likes to walk down there, so what has been, or what will be in place to safely walking down?
At night? Good question. We don't have a lot of street lighting. I don't know, but it's separated from the shoulder. So there's a lot of roads, like, you know, I live in Radnor, there's a lot of dangerous roads, but they will be separated with a 2 or 3 foot, you know, verge, with a nice path. So, you know, at night, they're just gonna, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's like any path. Like, you know, the Radnor Trail, it's not lit. I mean, again, it's not near traffic, but it's just, you know, it's at your own risk. You know, plus, I mean, there are things that I ask myself going there is, when this is built, is, do we have what's our maintenance obligation? You know, we think about that. Now the township has 3/4 of a mile, and we don't have a lot of staff to. What do we do with snow and ice? You know, those types of maintenance issues that a lot of municipalities don't initially consider, but that's a long-term obligation, which is fine. It's another step that we need to take to, you know, keep it year-round, open year-round.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, up next from, not from Upper Darby Township, we have Rich Kerr and we have Steve Lockhart from Friends of Upper Darby Trails.
Yes, ma'am.
You're going first, right?
I think we are. Okay.
Hey, Rich.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to out one of our spies, Steve Lockhart from Upper Darby Trails. He's come in from the cold, literally. Steve is the guy who is out there periodically clearing brush and stuff in Upper Darby, one of the many, creating little wooded trails, and he's also been out spying on any construction activity on this section of the Darby Creek Trail, which has been bogged down by COVID and other things. And a couple of weeks ago, he spotted footings, concrete footings starting to be poured. So this is about real activity that's having happened now, and we have slides from just Wednesday of where this stands. So let's get into this. The Darby Creek Trail is a major circuit network trail. You heard the Bike Coalition talk about the overview of that. It runs from Darby Borough in the south all the way up to Haverford Reserve eventually, and hopefully beyond that. And different townships and boroughs are putting in their pieces as they become possible. Upper Darby, Haverford, and Lansdowne have all worked on sections in their areas. This is the 2009 plan that Steve Beckley from Delaware County showed you a map of. The little purplish dotted line, if you can make that out, along the Wiggly path is the intention of the Darby Creek Trail back then. And as you see, it goes through that whole area. This study only goes up as far as Marshall Road, Garrett Road, I'm sorry, and down to Pine Street and Darby. This is the upper third of that approximately from the master plan. The light green is all municipally owned open space. The dark green is county owned municipal open space. And you can see the trail as it was envisioned back then. What I wanted to point out is this takes a lot of bridges. If you look at the open space along Darby Creek, it hopscotches across one side of the creek to the other. And it's real easy to draw a line on a map and say, sure, we put a bridge here, put a bridge there, bridge here, bridge there. You know, $250,000 a bridge. So on the right side, an easement was reached with what's shown there as, I forget the name of that company, Ava Technologies, they're not there anymore. Yeah, point it out. Over there. Over the right. The yellow dotted line.
Right here?
No, down there, right there.
Okay.
So 2 bridges were avoided there, not needed. Up here, though, we need to have a bridge across where the Swedish cabin is, and another bridge in the Addingham tract, which is the area on the left, just below Garrett Road. Garrett Road's on a big bridge up there in the sky, so you don't really see this when you're driving along on that road, but it's all down there. This is a drawing that we had in our presentation last week by Upper Darby Township. Gives you a more general, specific view showing the property lines. The squiggly thin black line is the trail. You'll notice they have it curving nicely in the Gillespie Park, and they have to turn it pretty much at right angles to cross the bridge, the creek with the bridge. The reason they do that is you don't want the earthen embankments up to the edges of the bridge to be swept away or damaged in flooding, and you want the bridge to be very wide and high so the flooding waters can go underneath it, and the whole goal is to minimize damage. So that's why you see those kind of steep angles at the crossings. The abutments are now poured and curing. The 150-foot-long bridge at the Swedish cabin, just below the Swedish cabin, Steve has learned from talking to contacts, will apparently arrive in 2 pieces and be in the first week of March. They're hoping to assemble it, put it into position, and open and dedicate it by Earth Day this year. We will see. This is a picture from Wednesday. On the right, under black plastic, is the abutment that will hold the bridge on the Gillespie Park side. The middle, you can barely see Darby Creek, and the Swedish cabin abutment is on the far side of the creek with a mountain of dirt next to it ready to be formed into the embankment to approach up to the bridge. Here's a better view. The Gillespie Park Trail itself is mostly paved. They left it undone near where the bridge will be built because construction equipment will be trotting around all over that area. They'll put the ramps in, and then they can pave the ends. And many trees have already been planted. You yourself have been involved in that. Sure. Through a revitalized program of the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. This always seems to go hand in hand with trails, is the stream bank erosion. People suddenly get out there and realize, what can we do to make this a better place and make it more environmentally secure? So here is the Gillespie Park Trail as of Wednesday. If you can, keep your eyes on the basketball backboards on the far right side, and we'll give you a little tour. This is going down the trail. You can see how they've curved it to make it nice and pleasant and scenic to be on. And yet all of those little tubes are planted trees in protective collars. So you can imagine what this will look like when these trees grow to maturity. Farther down towards the basketball court, farther down still, and at the far end of this is where the bridge abutment will be. This is as it is right now. Then you need the bridge at the other end to Addingham. Additional funding is being sought to the due to delays and cost increases that we're all familiar with in the last 3 years. And the trail paving in Addingham itself has been completed, again, except right where the bridge will be constructed. So that's there waiting. And that takes you up to Rosemont Avenue. And then you're a block away from Drexel Brook. And Drexel Brook has sort of a path that they put in. And then you get to Drexel Line Shopping Center, which is being rebuilt on State Road and Township Line. It will have provisions within Drexel Line Shopping Center. If we can get across State Line and Township Avenue at that intersection, then we're into another park and up into Haverford Township, where the Darby Creek Trail will show later is being built down towards this. The Newtown Square Branch Trail is also a circuit network trail that uses the old abandoned rail line area. It goes from the Upper Darby Lansdowne area up to Haverford Township and beyond when it's all done. Haverford has a 1 mile segment, about a 3/4 mile segment, which we call the Pensy Trail since it's nowhere near Newtown Square yet. And we're extending that now, as we'll discuss later on in another presentation. And finally, Upper Darby is undertaking a Parks, Trails, and Open Space Master Plan. They have over 30 parks in the township. When I started mapping things, they didn't even have a map of all their parks. Now that's publicly available on our website at havetrail.com. The team is digging into it. Bob Thomas is part of that team. They're performing a comprehensive study of all the parks, open spaces, trails, sidewalks, bicycling facilities, and links to transit. And they're expected to be completing that study during the second half of this year. So things are happening in Upper Darby, and we're very glad to see it. Upper Darby is by far the largest municipality in Delaware County. It's the 6th largest municipality in the state. It's larger than Erie. Haverford Township is the 16th largest municipality in the state. We're bigger than Harrisburg. Just to put things in, by population, just to put things into relevant terms. And that's it. What do you want to add? Anything?
Rich, if you could go back to the one map. Rich, if you could go back to the one map, it shows the Newtown Square branch, if we can.
I'm not sure we have that map.
Do we?
No. No.
Okay, but there are several sections of the Newtown Square branch that are getting engineering and design funding. Section 7 and 8, I believe they're about to start paving.
And where are they?
7 and 8 is between Marshall Road over towards Essex and Chapman Park, more on the Lansdowne edge.
So below Marshall Road, south of Marshall Road.
Correct. And then
Speak up louder. Hold the mic close.
And then the other sections are section 6, which is between Marshall Road going north over to an abandoned bridge that goes to Barclay Square. Engineering and design, I think, is right on the edge of being funded for $100,000 there. And in section 1 and 2, which are the area closest to Haverford Township, which is a township line going down towards the Acme Shopping Center at Cedar Lane. Another $100,000 for engineering and design there.
Okay, great.
Okay. One other thing, there lots of foot soldiers have been doing things recently in Upper Darby. For years, nothing was being done there, certainly an underserved community. But more recently, several people on the mayor's staff, Vince Rangione, Allison Dobbins, have put a lot of effort there. And one person in particular has been driving all this. I don't want to get political, but there's certainly a number of people, this one person in particular has been driving all of this these last 3 years and deserves a lot of credit for that. You can go and ask yourself who that might be. Okay.
All right, thank you. Well, I don't think we'll take questions in the interest of time.
PennDOT is going to be reconstructing the bridge on State Road where Springfield and Upper Darby meet, where the new Wawa's built. Behind the Drexel Line Shopping Center trail, developers are agreeing to. Has PennDOT been pulled into the reconstruction of that bridge to get across State Road into Philbrook Park?
That was a possibility, but whether it happens or not, who knows?
Building that bridge very soon.
Well, PennDOT's plans for building a bridge through there, could take 10 years. There's even the possibility for the trail going under that bridge. Yes, but whether that happens or not, who knows?
So we haven't talked to them, is that?
I'm sure they've talked to PennDOT. The question is where it stands. Bob Thomas gave me a truism that I already knew years ago, and that is if you talk to PennDOT too soon, they say, well, it's too soon. We haven't started designing yet. And if you talk to them later, it says, oh, it's too late. We've already completed the design. So that is an issue. What are you saying, Peter?
Well, that's his point.
Yes. It's very difficult, is my point. It's not that nobody's tried, is my point.
Springfield has already been notified that project is going to be underway.
Underway meaning what?
We
Does,
have to move sewer lines within the next few months.
so they've already designed it.
I don't know.
See, that's the issue, is whether you know or not. That's when, and what happens is you,
Once in a lifetime, that bridge is not going to be redesigned.
I agree, I agree. Okay, point well taken. We want to take our break, we want to keep on schedule. If you want to talk to Steve out Upper Darby, please come up. Brian? The restrooms are across the hall, down to the left. The water fountain is out there too. Yes, Bob?
I just have to say, I've been working with PennDOT for almost 50 years, and as many organizations, people will stand up from here. I've been working with PennDOT for almost 50 years, advocating for trails starting in 74. I've been working with PennDOT for almost 50 years, advocating for trails, designing and building. I guess our first one was in the late 70s, the first section of the Schuylkill River Trail. They thought we were crazy. Who wants to trail along the river, right? Look at it now. But I would just say the kind of response I'm getting now, the people who are now being assigned to be PennDOT coordinators, is a whole change. One of the most difficult projects that we've worked on, we were consultants to Trails Conservancy in the Delaware Water Gap. How many people have been in the gap? All right, how the heck do you bring the Liberty Water Gap Trail and the 9/11 Trail through the gap? On one side, it's Interstate 80. On the other side, right, it's Norfolk Southern. It's the Scylla and Charybdis, of building trails. And up above is Route 611, held up by a 1911 retaining wall, which is collapsing. And every time you go up, like, they got half the road closed. So we come up with a plan to rebuild that wall and build a shelf this time and put the trail back. We had all the historic postcards of people walking, ladies in gowns, men in ties, admiring the gap. And we said, you'll be able to do that again. The business people went crazy. They really funded it. So we went to PennDOT, local district. They called a meeting. And they said, well, I got bad news and good news for you. The bad news is we know the road's falling apart. You need all your customers and people who live there need to get places. We don't have anything planned for you yet. The good news, we don't have anything planned for you yet. Let's start now. They got a project number. A $32 million project is moving forward, right? So the answer is you do need to get in early. Long time ago, I was on the Philadelphia Valley Forge Trail Committee. We were trying to get the Schuylkill River Trail through Conshohocken, right? There was the old Lafayette River. There wasn't any room for the trail. But we got it on somebody said there's this thing called the Transportation Improvement Plan. You got to get the Valley Forge Trail, the Schuylkill River Trail on the plan. So we did. One day I got a phone call from somebody at used to be in Radnor, the PennDOT office, District 6. He said, you guys got the trail here. We got to meet because we're replacing the bridge in Conshohocken across the river. So we had Montgomery County, we had Conshohocken Borough. We're all sitting in a meeting. He says, well, we're putting in the span over the railroad. We can make it as long as you want. And the borough said, oh, we always want to have Washington Street go through, it dead-ended. And we want the Schuylkill River Trail. So they built this long bridge that has Schuylkill River Trail, Washington Street, septic tracks. The point was, get it on, if you don't have an official map of your township or your borough, do it, right? So it's the early planning. This kind of meeting here, we're all meeting, learning about stuff, but that's the thing.
Let's take a break. We'll reconvene at 5 minutes.
Up next, we have the Director of Haverford Township Parks and Recreation and also my manager. He is a great manager. I can't say enough good things about him. And he also told me not to give him the 5-minute warning. He's talking as long as he wants. So I hope you have your coffee and donuts at your seat. Here he is, Brian Barrett.
Thank you. I talk pretty fast, so we'll be okay. So I'm going to go through the couple projects that we're working on in Haverford Township. And some of this feels a little bit like Groundhog Day because some of the things I'm saying we said last year and we expected to be further along with some of these projects. But working with PennDOT, pandemic, increasing cost has slowed down a few of the projects. But we're very excited about the Pensy Trail extension. For those of you who aren't familiar, I mean, a couple other presenters today have talked about it. The section that we're extending, right now the current section goes from Eagle Road at the YMCA down to the Haverford Township building, and the new section is going to go from Manoa Road all the way down to the Lanark Shopping Center on Westchester Pike. The big part about this is the pedestrian bridge that's going to go across. So this was funded with a PennDOT construction grant that is administered by DVRPC. When we got the grant back in 2019, it was for $1.14 million to build the trail. Those costs have escalated to closer to $2.4 million. We've been very fortunate that PennDOT realized that due to factors beyond our control, the pandemic, supply chain issues, the cost of steel, so they've funded most of that shortfall. Haverford Township did have to commit to putting a little less than $400,000 of that increase, but we're pretty excited about that. This is a representation of what the bridge could look like across Manoa Road. And Manoa Road's, as anybody who travels in Haverford Township, a very busy road. So the really nice thing about this, and this representation of what it would look like at the trailhead, is it really gives access, like a number of people have asked, practical access for kids to get to school from the Lanark Park section, to get to the library, to get to the township building, to get to Veterans Field, Bailey Park, Grassland Field, the YMCA. So we really feel like it opens up pedestrian access, bicycle access for kids going to school, people that want to use the YMCA, and people want to go to some of our parks that are along this trail. So we really feel like it's going to be a real game changer for people to take less vehicle traffic, because if you live in the Lanark section and you want to get to school, you have to walk along Darby Road, you have to cross Manoa Road, and that's really tricky road. So a lot of the people in the Lanark section have been asking, and again, the project's taken a little longer than we anticipated, but they're very excited their kids will be able to ride their bike to school. And they'll only have to cross Darby Road right by the middle school where there is somebody there to cross them. So very excited about that. What you're seeing here is an aerial representation. This is where the pedestrian bridge will be. The Haverford Township building is right here. Darby Road is up here. Manoa Road goes down to Westchester Pike. So this is the new section that'll take you through the Lanark part of Haverford Township. And then the next thing, the end of that is right before Westchester Pike. Vernon Road goes right out to Westchester Pike. This is where this trail will end. This is the Lanark Shopping Center. This is the new Amazon store that's going in there. We got a easement from the shopping center in this area to put the trail in. So we got a permanent easement. The shopping center has been very helpful. Now a lot of these trees, as you see here, goes right through a lot of these trees here. So we'll probably have to take a number of these down. So these neighbors here have asked that we put together a green screen here in the shopping center, because we granted the shopping center some rights in here when they were expanding the parking lot for their trucks. And they're going to help us with that green screen so we can address some of the neighbors' concerns. You know, there's been talk about this extending into Upper Darby. You heard Upper Darby talking about their Newtown Square branch and their trails. The challenge is getting across the Westchester Pike, Route 1, Darby Road corridor. We haven't given up on that, but it would take a lot to do that. And obviously, some of the plans that we talked about 10 years ago that we thought might never happen have happened because of the people in this room. So we think there's still some possibilities there. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the Darby Creek Trail. This is also a circuit trail. This extension is going to take us from Murray Place down to Warrior Road at the edge of the township. And then when you cross Vermont Road there, takes you into Upper Darby. So we're hoping to make those extensions because I know Upper Darby's working their way back up towards Haverford Township. So we're pretty excited about that. The first leg of the trail was constructed in 2013. That takes you from just below Westchester Pike near Barnaby's down to Murray Place. That's about a mile long. In 2021, Haverford Township purchased a property that's on this extension. It was just one homeowner there, and we approached her right after a flood. She was very amenable to trying to sell her home, so we were able to, with the Board of Commissioners, were able to secure that property. So the township owns all the property along there, which is important, so that we don't have to have those challenges that people talked about before, easements, property owners that are a little concerned about something changing behind their home. We got in the Haverford Township in 2021, got a DVRPC construction grant for $300,000. And then in last year, we were able to get an additional $500,000 from the Delco grant program, which is very helpful. We had also asked for a DCNR grant. We did not get that, but we're looking for some other grant opportunities to make up that shortfall. So roughly we have $900,000 now, and the estimated cost for that extension will be $1.4 million. Now, one of the challenges with this extension is at the same time the township got a PennDOT grant for a multimodal redo of the intersection at Vermont and Glendale. And anybody who's familiar with that intersection, I'm going to show you the intersection. This is that intersection. It's very, very tricky intersection. I lived about 200 yards away from this intersection, and navigating that every day was pretty tricky. I think a year and a half ago, they made it three-way stop where it used to be right turns, keep moving, and it really was a very challenging intersection. But as you see, there is no sidewalks here. There's just a short sidewalk here and up there, but coming up this way, up Vermont Road towards Steel Road, there's no sidewalks. So basically, if you're in the Pilgrim Garden section or the Hilltop section and you want to get to the Darby Creek Trail, it was pretty difficult to do that. So this multimodal grant that they got from PennDOT is going to be helpful because it's going to include trying to get pedestrian and bicycle access onto the trail. So they have to go through some right-of-way issues, and there's some talk at PennDOT about how to handle that intersection. I'm going to let Rich talk about that a little bit, but we're very excited about this, and ultimately we're hoping that the Darby Creek Trail will take us to this site. The Darby Creek is right out here behind us, right below the Blue Route, and the township, when they developed this property, the developer put aside $500,000 for further trail improvements, and we've held on to that with the idea that we can use that funding to get grants to extend the trail through Westchester Pike all the way up to here. Now, most of that length is fairly easy to do because it's along the Radnor-Haverford-Marple Sewer Authority. So there is an access road there where they have their trucks going down. The challenge is just on the other side of Westchester Pike, there's some homeowners there that are reluctant to have a trail go behind their house. So we did a trail study back in 2018 with Pannoni Associates along the whole length of Darby Creek, and there was talk of the possibility of building a bridge across Darby Creek into Marple, and then another bridge further down coming back to the Haverford side. That obviously, as they talked about in Upper Darby, I think they have a bridge that crosses Darby Creek. That's a challenge because of the cost, but it also links two municipalities, and Marple, because we've been talking to them prior to COVID, and we plan on getting back with them, they're very interested because they don't have many trails in Marple. And they had done some development along Westchester Pike, behind the Giant there, so there's some new developments that maybe can get access to those trails. So it's again, possibilities, but we'll look at that in the future. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Rich to talk about the intersection at Vermont and Glendale and two of the things that they're considering for that intersection, and then I'll wrap up with a little talk about maintenance.
Thank you. I just want to cover some interesting points in the transformation that we're seeing of PennDOT from an old Department of Highways into a multimodal thinking organization. One of the things they've latched onto is a recent study showing safety improvements of roundabouts. With regard to the intersection that Brian was talking about at Vermont and Glendale, the question is, they've identified 2 major options out of 5. One is a signalized intersection, and the other is a roundabout, which has no signals, and you just kind of go around about. Not as big as a traffic circle, it's a new thing really, but different. So this is a glimpse from the past. I found at the Historical Society, and you can see there's a horse watering trough at the intersection. That's the end of Glendale Road coming in from the right. Vermont, this slide show is going on its own, excuse me. Vermont Road comes down the hill in front of us and off to the left. You can see the horse watering trough. You can see that the road side has already been cut back with a stone wall on one side and a ditch on the other, a vertical cut, to already have widened this road. And this is only 1962. It's not as old as it looks. That's what the intersection was like back then. That house was demolished and the road was straightened, as you see now, and it's wider yet and wider still. And there are no sidewalks, there are no shoulders anywhere. This is a deed that I mapped from 1962, 63, showing this land that was taken out of the park. Excuse us for skipping ahead automatically. All that strip of land was taken out of the parkland and converted into the improved road. Now we're talking about doing it again. This is the trail. The intersection is up top. It's Vermont coming down from the north and heading off to the right. And you can see that what they're talking about straightens the road out even more and takes more land from the park. And the only sidewalk is the small red circle up on the upper right. The trail alignment in green is just a preliminary one from years ago and it will probably not look like that. There are 2 favorite alternatives. Both have the same approximate cost, believe it or not, with signals or without. We need to think about safe pedestrian and cycling access to the park, the greenway, and a major trail. And this is funded as a multimodal grant, so consideration of all the modes should be a factor in that. Both roads are presently stop sign-free speedways up until this intersection, and there are no shoulders. So they're marked at 25 and people do 45 and up. The signalized intersection is the traditional approach. Red lights will create breaks in traffic when pedestrians could cross safely. We could have leading pedestrian intervals, which is a feature where the pedestrian crossing light turns green ahead of the parallel traffic light turning green, giving pedestrians a head start, and that increases pedestrian safety by getting them out in the lane and maybe through the lane before a right or left turn car decides to take over the crosswalk. Nobody likes red lights, but from the 1950s on, we've learned that facilitating traffic simply gets you more traffic. The roundabout's a newer method, no traffic signals, as I said. PennDOT cites a study showing improved safety, but the question is for whom? For motorists and vehicle crashes or for pedestrians? One of the questions we had here was they might not have much pedestrian data on this intersection because, as Brian pointed out, people are afraid to even try crossing it. So they're not there now because it's too scary. Pedestrians and cyclists must still depend on yielding in a crosswalk at a roundabout. They must still depend on drivers following the law and slowing down to let them cross. And it would take away even more public open space because it's a circular thing instead of just a straight line like a road. And that adds more impervious paving. So the question is, which is better? And that's the dilemma we have right now. You may have roundabouts coming to your township or borough and already have them. One went into Chichester, I believe, recently. And the question you might have to face is, which is really better for the situation you have? So I brought this out as a thought process for you back in your home areas.
Okay, and I'll be brief because I know we're running behind. I'll take that. So trail maintenance is always a big deal. We have invasives along all of our trails. If you drive in on Vermont Road from Marple, you see the invasives covering the trees. So we did get a $50,000 DCNR grant for restoring some of the buffers along Darby Creek and Cobbs Creek. We're removing invasives through a lot of volunteer work and planting a lot of trees. And we've opened up some vistas you haven't seen in probably 30 years because those invasives have been taken over. So we also were able to, through a Delco grant, to get a Parks and Recreation open space planning process started. We're about halfway through the process. We expect that to be completed later this summer. One of the main reasons we did that, because with the trail development, we realized trail maintenance had to follow and trying to clean up those corridors, because the views of the creek are much better when you get rid of some of the invasives. So in 2022, volunteers logged over 1,000 hours clearing invasives and planting over 450 native trees and shrubs along the open spaces and along the trails. So, and this is some pictures of people planting trees and clearing invasives, and we've had a great response from our residents about being willing to volunteer. In fact, they call us and say, when's the next project going? So Peter's given me the all done sign, so I'll pass on to Eileen to introduce the next speaker. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Rich. Okay, up next from Lansdowne Borough, we have Benjamin Hover. He's the director. Wait, you're the president of the Lansdowne Borough.
Yes. Thank you all, and thank you for coming today. I know that we all love trails here, so I want to speak a little bit about what we have going on in Lansdowne with the trail that we put in on Scottdale Road. About 5 years ago, we came to the Trail Summit and talked about what Lansdowne has, what our assets are. Unlike Haverford Township, Upper Darby Township, Middletown Township, we're 1 square mile. So we have limited ability to put in trails in a significant area of forest. What we do have, though, is a beautiful borough with a lot of beautiful houses, a lot of folks who take a lot of care with their gardening and flowers, and so we wanted to do what we could in Lansdowne to provide access, creating those multimodal points where people could walk through Lansdowne. We have the ability to have pedestrian traffic as well as a bikeable community. And so that's a lot of the talk that I'm going to have today is about that we do have, like many other municipalities in Delaware County, a number of issues and concerns from the different residents. The number one concern that I've heard since I've been on council is the traffic in Lansdowne, and the concern that people have about walking around the community, about biking in the community. And so a lot of the planning that we've been doing is to try to solve that. On top of that is looking at the way Lansdowne was founded. We were founded in 1893 as a commuter suburb to Philadelphia. Because of that, one of our major assets are, we have 2 train stations in Lansdowne, with many people who want to walk and bike to those train stations. So some of the planning that we did is looking about how we could maximize what we have in the community, and then also look at the potential areas of support. In particular, Scottdale Road goes through what I see as one of the gems in Delaware County of Hoffman Park. It has a nice trestle bridge that you can see when you walk through it. You also have this walkway along Darby Creek, and we have an open area for a lot of the residents to take part in. Before we converted this and before we made some changes, it was very inaccessible. To get there, even I live in maybe a quarter-mile away up on a ridge in an area called Gladstone Manor in Lansdowne. It's right in my backyard, but to get to it is a steep decline from the SEPTA station, and on the other side we have Baltimore Pike. And there was no walkway, no real good sidewalk to get down. And so some of our changes that we've made in Lansdowne is to try to make it accessible. So those were the existing conditions. You can see the picture here. That was a 2-way road. Very dangerous. People would take the road going 35, 40, sometimes 50 miles an hour. We had a lot of issues, as you can see, unwalkable, unbikeable, and it really created a significant problem. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the connections to the Darby Creek Trail because other folks have in the area, but ultimately what we would like to have as well in Lansdowne is this connection from Darby Creek Trail from Lansdowne all the way down to Darby, and then the other way, we're waiting on that one section in Upper Darby to be complete. That way, that goes through Clifton Heights, that way we can connect all the way to Haverford, all the other connections up above. And so we did make the changes on the road. Just this past year, we opened up the bike lanes in Lansdowne. This was one of the areas of that bike network. To bring it into fruition, we had this movement from the initial plans back in, I believe, 2011 through grant money from the DVRPC to create a walkshed plan for all of Lansdowne. And it took a significant planning. We initiated in 2019 a contract with Pannoni for the entire bike network. Part of that being the Scottdale roadside. We had a number of public meetings. As you might remember, we were in COVID, so many of those were on Zoom. And I do want to thank some of the folks here for being part of that. Lane Schaefer was part of that. Rich Kerr was part of that, as well as the Greater Philadelphia Bike Coalition and Bike Delco, who really participated and with the community to let them know like what it is, what the benefits were, and how this fits into a much larger network. So we did have these public meetings that took place. There was, and there is still, some resistance to it because when you change, we have, that seems to be a trope here, change creates fear and people don't like change. And this is one of those areas that Scottdale Road was a cut through for many people to bypass Baltimore Pike and bypass Lansdowne Avenue, which was also part of the reason why it was dangerous, is that people were cutting through. They were, thank you. So people would take it as a cut through, which made it incredibly dangerous. People weren't stopping in Lansdowne, which hits another part of the benefits of bikes and trails is of economic development. We really wanted people to come into our downtown and frequent our businesses. What people were doing is bypassing Lansdowne completely, cutting through to wherever they needed to go to avoid that traffic in the downtown. So making this change has opened it up. We did pay for it through ARPA money. We tried to avoid using as many local funds as possible. We really tried to go through PennDOT. PennDOT wouldn't let us use our liquid fuel fund money for it. So eventually what we did is we paired up our ARPA money with a portion of our general fund money to build the road. So we did make the change. We had a few events just this past year, a biking event in conjunction with the Greater Philadelphia Bike Coalition and Bike Delco. We gave out some helmets, free bikes to kids, and we're looking to, again this spring, around the Lansdowne Community Day to have another bike ride and also generate interest in the bike trail.
Are each of these now happening, or just the one on the right?
The one on the left is what we implemented.
Okay.
That we had two different designs for it. We implemented the one on the left. So you can see where we have the dedicated bike lane coming up the trail, and then we have a share going down the other side. And what it's done, and it's incredibly important, is that it's not just the importance for bicyclists, and we've recognized this with all of the bike lanes that have gone into Lansdowne, is that it's really opened up for pedestrians as well, that there are numerous people who use this as a walkway to just do a circuit around Lansdowne, and the bike lanes that have gone in have really opened it up.
The significance of this is the first removal of a traffic lane, and in fact the ability to travel in one direction in Delaware County to facilitate a bike lane and a walking lane as well.
Thank you. And what this has also done, and I want to, at the end of it, there's a map of all the bike network that we put into Lansdowne, is what we've tried to do is to create this ability for all residents in Lansdowne to walk around Lansdowne. We've really tried to open up the pedestrian-friendly and bike-friendly avenues for people to access different parts. On top of it, we've tried to invest in, one of the visions that we have in Lansdowne is really improving quality of life for all the residents. That way everybody's within walking distance of a park. Everybody has the ability to walk to the park, bike to the park, get to that area. And so what we did, we have a few projects adjacent that there are pictures from. One is Gateway Slope that comes down. It's at the corner of Baltimore Pike and Scottdale Road. And that was implemented through a couple of grants, the DCNR money, DCED money. And what it does is it opens up the area for Hoffman Park, as well as allowing pedestrian-friendly walkway from Clifton Heights up to Gladstone Station. And all of this is really trying to access and create that multimodal effect of allowing people to walk towards the train stations and also to the parks. So we have on this side, you can see a picture. This is from McKinley Tot Lot. That area that was designed was a parking lot before that was not used. So it was the space in town that maybe 1 or 2 people parked in with about 15 spaces. And so we turned that into a tot lot, and on Wycombe Avenue, created another bike lane to access that area. Part of what we did as well is worked with PennDOT when Lansdowne Avenue was being repaved and restriped to put dedicated bike lanes all the way down Lansdowne Avenue to connect with the bike lane that goes on Greenwood Avenue, which comes all the way down to Scottdale Road. What we're looking to do this year is also to restripe Plumstead Avenue, which is another very fast, unstriped road to put bike lanes in, to slow down the road and also create that multimodal, bike-friendly, pedestrian-friendly area. So at this point, that we would have 2 to 3 arterials in Lansdowne that are bike-friendly. We have the bike lanes on it, and for all the pedestrians, as I said before, it allows that space, that gap, that between the sidewalks and the road, between the cars, that makes it safer for all the pedestrians going through as well. I know that's a concern that many people had it's one thing to have a park, it's another thing to be able to bike to the park, to walk to the park, and have those connections between it. Thank you. So here's a picture, as I said before, that's what McKinley lot looked like before it was changed, and that's what it is now as the park. And you can see Wycombe Avenue. Part of this design was also to put a bike lane on Wycombe Avenue and also create a safer sidewalk along the side. So that whole area is much safer. The other issue is the speeding. The bike lane creates the road diet, slows down the cars, and as one of the council members who's an engineer has said to me, that you can't necessarily change people's minds, but you can change behaviors through good engineering. And that's part of what we're trying to do, is to engineer some of the bad habits out of drivers in Lansdowne. A few more pictures from the top lot. And this is Gateway Slope. Before this was put in, there was a sidewalk that went straight up Baltimore Pike. Every winter, whenever PennDOT would come through and take snow off the road to do snow removal, it'd kick up onto the sidewalk, so it made it inaccessible. It was an incredibly dangerous sidewalk. And so what we did here is we created a buffer and then a switch back up into Gladstone Manor with an entryway with lights into Lansdowne. So we have this Gateway Park now. And you can see there are some folks here, our Vice Chair, County Council Lane Schaefer. We want to thank all of the individuals on the state level as well as local level who helped make this happen. And again, going to what people have said here is this idea of planning. This park was envisioned by a friend of mine who was on council back in 2002. So it took about 20 years to make this happen. That's the entryway into Lansdowne. Another picture of, here's the Wycombe Avenue bike lane. And context of it, you can see that we have an entire loop of dedicated bike lanes going around Greenwood Avenue, down Scottdale Road, connecting up to Lansdowne Avenue. another dedicated bike lane coming down Wycombe Avenue on Nyack Avenue. And we're looking, how do you do that? There we go. So right up here is Plumstead Avenue going into Marshall Road. So the idea is that we'll have another dedicated bike lane going east. We have one coming west. That way we have these arterials coming through the town of Lansdowne. And at that point that we're really working towards this complete streets design. In 2021, we did pass a complete streets policy for Lansdowne. That way any new creation of sidewalks and kind of new work on roads that we're really taking into account pedestrians and bicyclists as well. We want to make this as safe for all of the residents in Lansdowne, not just people in cars, but also people who want to walk and people who want to bike. And that concludes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, up next we have from Middletown Township, Jennifer Moore.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I was hired in 2020 to be the Director of Parks and Recreation. Spent a lot of time at home and walking trails and making the trails accessible for people who wanted to get out during the pandemic. So spent my first year doing that. But since then, we've had a lot of really great things happen in Middletown, especially with our trails. So in Middletown Township right now, we own 16.5 miles of trails. So we have a lot of trails, a lot of maintenance, and we are looking to build new trails every day. We did a public survey, and trails are the one thing that people want. So we're giving it to them. We have over 33 miles of trails in Middletown if you include Tyler Arboretum and the Penn State Brandywine campus. So here are all the trails in Middletown Township. The ones in gray are paved and asphalt trails, and then earth and unpaved trails are in green. So there's a lot. We have, one of our main goals is to connect all of Middletown. So I'll show you that plan in a second. We have the Cornucopia Trail, it's 1.25 miles. The Darlington Trail is 2.93 miles.
Point out that you have markers on your trails.
Yes, we have markers on all of our trails. The markers will really, and we're in all trails as well. So we've really walked through all the trails and tried to map them all out on all trails so they're pretty accessible. Indian Orchards, my favorite park ever, is 0.83 miles, and it's a little hidden gem. It's across from the Middletown Fire Station, and it's right off of 352, but you have to go into Indian Orchards, which is an orchard, and then go around. So people don't really use it, but it's gorgeous if you want to go. The Linville Trail is 3.5 miles, and it really goes all around Linville Orchards. The Rocky Run Trail is a natural lands trail. We partnered with them, but we maintain it. It's 2.5 miles. Our Slayton Park Trail, this is at Slayton Park, the corner of Valley and Forge Roads. This trail is 0.73 miles and it's paved. We do a lot of things in this park at this trail. We had a haunted trail and we set up tons of Halloween decorations and we had it lit at night. It was awesome. So Slayton Park Trail is paved. Then we have the Smedley Tract, our unnamed park. It is right across from Granite Run on Rose Tree Road, so Granite Run Promenade on Rose Tree Road. We have a brand new paved trail there. It's 1.1 miles. And then the Millennium Trail is at Memorial Park. And this trail is 0.5 miles, and it leads, it kind of goes into Mineral Hill, so county owns. So these are our existing trails. Proposed new trails. These probably will be finished within the next, probably by 2024, we'll have all of these new trails. So the Slayton Farm Trail, we bought Slayton Farms. It's across from Slayton Park. It was part of the old Slayton School. It's 81 acres. So we'll have a circuit trail there that is 2.5 miles. Our new Mint Trail is through a TRIG grant and is part of our pedestrian connections that we're making.
From Franklin.
It's our Franklin Mint. It'll be behind Franklin Station and Pond's Edge that were just built on Baltimore Pike. And I'll show you our pedestrian connection links in a second. The Lenai Trail, so at Lenai Park, we received a grant to revitalize the park, so that will have a circuit trail as well. The Chester Creek Trail Extension, so I know that you've heard Stephen Beckley talk about this. So we are extending the Chester Creek Trail from where it ends right now, kind of like near Lenai, and it will go all the way to to the new Wawa train station. So it's really going to help with our pedestrian links through Middletown Township so that we're all connected throughout the entire township. And Purchase Way Trail is paved, it's an asphalt trail. It kind of goes along Baltimore Pike, so I can show you that as well. So we did a PROS plan, our Park and Recreation Open Space Plan, and we did in 2020 our comprehensive plan. And one of the things that we focused on was prioritizing new pedestrian connections. So our pedestrian network, we want to connect all of our township parks, our Roosevelt Community Center, our train stations, Williamson and Penn State, our commercial centers, so all of the shopping that we have in the township, all of the schools, Tyler Arboretum, and Ridley Creek State Park, and the hospital. So we have an existing trail network that would really, we just looked at it and said, okay, how can we connect all of these things and what do we have to do? So here's our plan. We're using existing trails, we're putting in sidewalks, crosswalks, and we have our natural paths throughout the township. So, existing are in green, we have our proposed trails in purple. The street connections that we'll have are like blue dashes. There's one up, there's a little laser thing, there you go. Right up there, near Darlington, there's just one road connection that we had to have. And then we have some existing sidewalks there in orange, and then the proposed sidewalks are in pink. So I do break this down a little bit. So what you see up at the top is Tyler Arboretum, right here. And then we connect through trails down to the township. Here we would have connections. This is the promenade where the Granite Mall used to be. You have trails that would lead over here. We have like connections across Baltimore Pike. This is a hard one. But we have worked with PennDOT, so we do have some lights and some pedestrian crosswalks that go across Baltimore Pike. And then up here we have our existing Slayton Park, and then Slayton Farms is here. Going down a little bit, here we would have this is existing sidewalks. We have a little bit of a road connection here. So you can see we have plans to go through the township all the way down. The issue is you would have to go to the crosses. So you really would have to cross Baltimore Pike at like 2 specific places to kind of get across. So you would end up kind of going longer than you wanted to, maybe going down Baltimore Pike to get to that cross instead of being able to cross all the way up. But really we have plans, a connection all the way through the township. So it's grant funding. So the yellow dotted line, this is the only thing that we don't have funding for. So this would be, we would have to get easements and grant funding for the yellow line. It's on South Old Middletown, so we have the Roosevelt Community Center's there. So, yep, so it would be sidewalks or a paved trail on the side of it. But we would have to, that's only based on, if you see down here, it says Conceptual, subject to acquisition of grant funding and private property easements.
Where is that? So that's just at the very beginning, you don't have any rest.
So some of this, so the proposed are these purple dashed lines. So existing is all in green. So this all exists. That's the Linville Trail, Indian Orchard. We have existing sidewalks right now in orange. Proposed are in purple, and we have funding for those. It's the yellow that are just conceptual at this point.
Okay.
Questions? Yes.
The recent pipeline that crosses the Linville property, that was an opportunity for possibly building a trail. Any movement on that?
So there hasn't been. We have the Linville Trail, so that goes across where the pipeline was put in. But we aren't planning a trail in the easement at all. Yes.
Repeat the question.
Okay. He
It's okay, Eileen, we need to move on. We're a whole speech
The
behind.
question was, there's a Sunoco pipeline that crosses township near the Linville Farm. And could there be a trail on that section?
Yep, so really the Linville Trail goes past that. It goes over where the pipeline is. But we didn't plan anything to go down the easement onto Knowlton Road. Yes.
I know your plan is to go to Tyler Arboretum. Is there any thought about connecting to Ridley Creek State Park since it's right down the road?
Yep, same thing. So we'd be connecting to Tyler Arboretum and to Ridley Creek State Park.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Okay, up next from the Heinz-Refuge Trail, we have Robert Thomas. Oh, great. Here you go.
And the pointer is where?
It is right here.
And how do I use it?
So you just click on it. See how if you click, you go like this?
Yep.
Right there.
Let me just try that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, everyone can hear me? Good. There are two major things I want to bring to your attention. I know we're short on time, so I'm not going to talk about the entire trail. But let's get started. Just to tell you, the Valley Forge to Heinz-Refuge Trail connects two national facilities, a national park and a national wildlife refuge. That was not accidental. Next. Do I click it?
I can do it if you like.
Okay, yeah. All right, so the northern part ties in with the Schuylkill River Trail, comes through existing trails here, down through Warner Farm Park, uses some of the Chester Valley Trail, and then a link is being worked with Tredyffrin Township to the Radnor Trail, and then of course the trail will continue down. We've looked at rail with trail, improvements in Carricone Drive. Next, please. This is starting out. There's this wonderful bridge that was redone over the Schuylkill River as a ped bike bridge. Next. Of course, there's the Great Arch at Valley Forge. Next. And eventually you're on the Radnor Trail. And next, please. And here we get into something I was asked to talk about. The Radnor Trail currently comes up and ends at Radnor-Chester Road. There have been grants, Big Delco Greenway grant, a DCED grant, and others, to do the first part of the extension, and it will go down, I'll show you in other sheets, to the Blue Route. But in our feasibility study we did, we had an environmental review and discovered there was arsenic, probably from old ties or clearing weed control or whatever. And let's go to the next slide. And you'll see as you go along, the black dots were okay. The red dots are where we have what are called exceedances. And the process of figuring out what in the world to do with it involves the folks at Gilmore and Associates who are providing all of our environmental work on this, is they've done drilling and excavation and taking sampling down to a certain level. And if they find it's still down at that level, they go further and further until we can then determine how deep is the infection, so to speak, of the arsenic. It doesn't tend to go through the ground itself into the groundwater, but it's there. By doing that and knowing the length and the areas and the depth, we can calculate how many cubic feet of contaminated soil need to be addressed. So as you continue out, there's a stream, Martha Brown's Run. Next, please. And as you get to the end, there were no exceedances. This is the blue route right here, and we're planning, of course, at some point to jump over the ramps of the blue route, to jump over that and then continue down to the Norristown high-speed line and use the unused track bays as a rail with trail. What are just very quickly, the two approaches that we were told. The township is developing this trail on a PennDOT right-of-way. They will update their agreement with PennDOT under which they currently operate the trail from Sugartown Road to Radnor-Chester Road. But they will, whereas PennDOT built the first section, they will be building this under PennDOT's supervision and also providing the environmental remediation. And there are two approaches. One is to remove the contaminated soil and have it processed, which is very expensive. The other is a capping approach, which has been used in many places. The DNR trail, I can give you any number of examples. When you pave it, that prevents people from having contact with the contaminated soil. So we're at the point now where there's additional examination going on, and the township will be evaluating which approach to take. The other thing that has changed, can we go back 2 slides? At the time we did this, the trail, when it was built, those of you who remember in '04, this is the rail bed, and the railroad went underneath Radnor-Chester Road. We built a ramp up here, and here's the tap trail, and we did multiple alternatives about could we do a culvert, and we actually, our engineers at Ratu designed a culvert which would allow construction vehicles through so future construction could take place over the Blue Route. We looked at a less expensive alternative of coming up here and having a grade crossing and then continuing. The commissioners earlier this year took a look at the alternatives and they said, you know, this is going to be here for at least 50 years. Every other part of this trail is completely grade separated. Radnor-Chester Road is not a fun road to cross. So they have gone back with the aid of the Delco Greenway grant and matching funds. And what we're doing now will be, once the environmental review is complete, is planning the trail to go underneath here. I was just in a discussion yesterday about continuing so we have a connection to the tap trail and moving that forward. Next slide.
The bridge was filled in.
The bridge was filled in, yes, right. And so we would be rebuilding a bridge where there had been one. Next, please. Keep going. Keep going. This is the lower part. After you come out of Radnor, you come through Haverford Township. This is the rail with trail, Carroll Park. We need a crossing of Route 1. Certainly Brian and I have been talking about major crossings. Then the trail goes briefly into Upper Darby, goes around the Cobbs Creek Golf Course, comes back into Middletown Borough and Upper Darby Township, and then comes down the existing trail. And this is where you heard about the work going on Cobbs Creek Trail in various phases to get into John Heinz. What's exciting, one of the latest things to happen, 2 things. One, this has been problematic. The golf course is going on. I got an email 2 days ago that the city of Philadelphia's, the White Coalition, Sarah Clark Stewart's here, and the other folks from the coalition have been working along with DVRPC and others negotiating this. The city is stepping in saying, we want to take control of this. And while you can say, oh, I don't know about that, I often find as a trail builder or an advocate, when someone comes in and says, we're going to be the champions of this, even though they're busy with other things, that really helps. Because there's a big political situation here of making this work, and people are concerned about all the trees that have come down and having to see that that happens properly in the future. Let's go to the next slide. So just here you have, this is actually a piece of where we proposed the trail. Go back, the Haverford Station. So there, yeah, that's okay, yeah. When this railroad was built, they planned it to be 4 tracks, so our proposal is to use the other track bays next. This is the golf course next. The Cobbs Creek Trail exists, it's really pretty nice. This was a tour we had through the Parks Alliance. Next, please. Someone was talking about this already. Look at this. Where could you get the trail through? And God darn, they did it. You know, so with some thinking, you can really get far along. Now, next please. All right, then you get to John Heinz. Well, what's the big deal that's happening in the lower section? Can we go back to the map about 4 slides back? There you go. All right. What's coming down the Delaware, down the Schuylkill River and going to Bartram's Garden, going over here and then continuing down? Whoop.
All right. Keep talking.
Okay.
I don't want to cap.
Yeah, then continuing down to John Heinz and going on. The answer is the September 11th National Memorial Trail. Now, that project's been around for a while. Some of you are aware of it. It connects the 3 major sites. Next, please. One more. There you go. So here we are in Delaware County. Red, right, proposed. All right, going from Philly down to here. You know. All right, and you have,
Keep going.
all right, I need to point to, yeah, you have the Pentagon, Flight 93, World Trade Center, and the whole route that was figured out. It's a pilgrimage trail. But the biggest deal, next slide, on the 20th anniversary of the tragedy of 9/11, there's Andy Hamilton, who many of you know, and other important people sitting with this gentleman, who I'm sure most of you are acquainted with, and he is signing in October of 2021 a law that was passed unanimously by both houses of Congress, that does happen actually, making the 9/11 trail into a national memorial trail. And what components of the national park system are here in Delaware County? National park system, not national park, like Grand Canyon. Independence Hall's not in Delaware County. Sorry. All right, the answer is the 9/11 National Memorial Trail. We have a park superintendent assigned to look over the trail in Pennsylvania. We have 4 people on our implementation committee, which I co-chair. It's unbelievable. And what this will do for Delaware County and all the effort that's been spent, I was on one team that looked at 291 in Chester and all the way through. What this means is you now have this trail with incredible support, incredible political support, backing all the efforts that are being made here in Delaware County to go through Tinicum Township, Ridley Park, Eddystone, Chester, Traynor, Marcus Hook. Next, please. Yeah, so here it is. It comes in right here at Schuylkill River Trail, over 58th down here. Some of this is in Delaware County. As you know, the Cobbs Creek Trail goes out into Delaware County and Yeadon Borough, comes down here to John Heinz, and then it's in Tinicum. All this is now National Memorial Trail, right into Delaware and all the way, of course, to Washington, to the Pentagon. That's the big news. And those of you who have more questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. How our 9/11 trail, which I'm involved with, can also help your projects here in Delaware County. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Okay, up next, speaking for Lower Merion Township, we have Peter Puglianese.
Thank you. I'm going to be brief because I am not Chris Leswing. And he also didn't update me on progress of most of these things. So Lower Merion is got some ambitious plans. It's also a little bit landlocked in terms of the ability to do trails, fully developed. But around the Kinwood Trail, they've got some very ambitious plans connected with their plan for the city line corridor. And so this shows the city line, the City Avenue District, the West Laurel Hill Cemetery extension. So the Kinwood Trail is connecting through the cemetery to the Pencoid Bridge. There's plans for an extension along the Schuylkill River. They're trying to tackle some very challenging things, like extending the Kinwood Trail with the assistance of SEPTA further into Philadelphia. And also challenging is they're trying to create connections from City Avenue to the Kinwood Trail network. And the difficulty is obviously very highly developed commercial district. So it's taking a lot of time. They're making headway, but the township is very, very committed to working through this on a long-term basis with the businesses along that district. Okay. So this is the intended extension of the Kinwood Trail. I think it is still with SEPTA at this point. This is the connections to the river bridges. This is a way through to the river bridges, so they're negotiating with Norfolk Southern, I believe still. And are you moving them?
No, it's automatic.
It's automatic.
Backing
Okay.
it up.
All right, I don't know what's happening. So at any rate, this is pretty much the summary. Oh, I guess the other thing that I wanted to mention is the lighting on the bridge, the Kinwood Trail Bridge into Manayunk is in place, operating, so it's now a 24/7 operation. You heard earlier about the main line Greenway. I don't have anything to add about that. So they're trying to tackle some very, very tough problems, and it's taking time, and we're no stranger to the fact that these things take time, as we talked about. So just be persistent, keep going, support it in your community, support it in your municipality. That's about all I have. Oh, thank you. So the Wynwood Road Diet was implemented recently with a lot of support from the community. So we had 4 lanes down to 2 lanes with turn lanes. I think the community is ecstatic about this change. Haverford, as you heard about, is also evaluating a road diet. I would encourage, if there's anyone from Lower Merion here, we tried to get Lower Merion to also ask for a road diet for the section of Haverford Road from City Line Avenue to Manoa Road, and it didn't get any traction. But that is a section of road that really should not have 4 lanes. There's no purpose for it, and it could improve. You could improve pedestrian and bike access and connect with bike lanes in Philadelphia on Haverford Avenue. So let's see that happen, hopefully. Questions? Are there plans for lighting along? Okay. As I said, I am not Chris Leswing. I don't know. Maybe somebody else knows. Yes?
We were the team that did the walking biking plan for Lower Merion. At the time we were talking about that, residents said, lighting the bridge fine, but they didn't want lights in their back. They didn't want lights in their backyards, and I don't know where that is right now, but I think that would make a difference. Yeah. Right. The other thing I have to tell fellow cyclists, because I go at night, I'm allowed out after dark, is the lighting that's available for bicycles now. If you go down on Kelly Drive at 9 o'clock at night, people are coming home from work, they're coming back from dinners, they're out, whatever, and they have really good headlamps. And I think the technology is such that when you drive a car, you're riding on a well-lit road, then now you're turning off onto Conshohocken State Road, has virtually no lighting that's worth anything. The other point I wanted to just make very quickly was the comment about the Kinwood the Kinwood Heritage Trail being extended to City Avenue. SEPTA is very enthusiastic about it going all the way down to Fairmount Park. Most people don't realize that that rail bed abuts Fairmount Park down at Parkside Avenue. And all the trail is done from there all the way into downtown Philadelphia. So the city has already put up signs taking you from Fairmount Park to Bala, saying to Kinwood Heritage Trail. That's all it does, all signed. And that rail with trail is one that SEPTA is enthusiastic about because they don't ever expect to run trains beyond Kinwood in the future. And there's plenty of space. It was a 2- and 3-track line. Don't know the priority. The city does publish a list annually in December. David Canther is in charge of trails for the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. It lists all the trails, including that one, and the priority for development. The completion of Lower Merion's portion will definitely push the priority on getting Philadelphia's done.
I wish we had asked Bob to give this talk. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, Peter. Okay, up next we have Anthony DiVincenzo. He's from Newtown Trails and Greenway Committee.
I'm actually pretty excited that I don't have a visual considering the seizures that this is inducing, so thanks. I just wanted to give an update. So we presented last year in the first year of our Trails and Greenways Committee in Newtown Township. I was very fortunate to join that committee, and mostly as a new resident, a lot of the things that I've been hearing today are the same things that I worried about. Walkability, the connection, you know, people think trails, they think, well, you know, unpaved areas through woods, but it's also the sidewalks. Like, we do a lot of this in our township, trying to review all the planned developments and making sure that there are sidewalks, there are crosswalks, there are connections. So we're still very, very new. I'm glad I talked to Rich the other day because I planned on coming here, and unfortunately, being a Debbie Downer and giving a lot of negative news, I'm new to working with government. I'm in the engineering side. I like to do progress, right? You get a project, you have goals, you set milestones. It's a little bit different when bureaucracy is involved. So this is new for me, but I did want to give you an update. So we have received some grants for constructing of sidewalks. Very important in our township because of how hard it is to walk around neighborhood to neighborhood now. Unfortunately, one of the downsides was we did have a rail trail feasibility study that we had a grant for, along a lot of the similar projects, like think of the Radnor Trail, and it was going to connect 2 of our existing parks. Unfortunately, we had one resident, very, very adamant. Apparently, she's been fighting this for, John, how many years? 20 years. It's been a challenge in that kind of submarine, that effort. So I want to be honest, you know, it's not all, you know, sunshine and roses. Everything, you have to kind of take these hits and keep moving, and it's the motivation of seeing people here that kind of like recharge me and say, all right, you know what? It's definitely a marathon. I'm going to take my time with it. So the next thing that we're really excited about, we've been doing a little and we're going to get more into, is more public engagement. So we've actually created a new subcommittee to get the social media presence better out there, because I've been trying to explain to a lot of the older people in our township, everybody is finding out things more and more through social media. They don't read the township newsletters like they used to, right? They're not coming to the meetings, and so the only way to get with them is through the Facebook groups for your local communities and stuff like that. So that's one thing that we're really excited about, because I'd love to see more people showing up to the regular meetings and putting the pressure on our elected politicians to make sure that these plans, these master plans you hear about, are followed through. So our goals for this upcoming year, I talked about social media, that's a huge one. Public access, we're doing a new parking lot actually at one of our existing parks. It's great, it's very natural park, it's called the Newtown Meadows Preserve. And I mean, it's beautiful, but the problem is there's a bit of a weird spot on how you get to it, how you access it. It's a little unclear. So we're gonna try and actually put a parking lot in there. This is a temporary thing that we're moving towards doing more in the future, but we want to provide access now. Public access is huge, not only in our township, in our community, in Delaware County, but across the country. And it's really hard in the Northeast to get these type of public access spots because of how old our communities are. And the different parcels of public and private land, there's not a lot of public, so we have to work with the private residents and the landowners to be able to get those easements and access. The last thing I want to finish on is the greenways protection. So we're called the Trails and Greenways Committee, and there's a reason for that. And I am personally, that was one thing that I've been spearheading since I got involved with, and I didn't know what an official town map was until very recently. I just thought, oh, it's just a, it's a map showing where everything is and showing so that your town, no, I had no idea that there were legal things tied to that to provide your township the ability to act on some of these things and acquire land. So that's one of the things that I've been getting involved with now is we're trying our best to get an official township map for Newtown Township. So if there are open tracts of land, which there's not many left, we have plans already laid out for where these trails want to go. But if that land is then developed, it might make it impossible due to how they develop that. So in the future, our township will hopefully be able to be at the negotiating table with the landowners that want to develop them or sell it and give us an opportunity to have our township purchase these parcels or get easements, permanent easements through these different parts where we can put these trails in. So that's really it. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. And if you have any questions. Yes, sir.
Anthony, this township committee is an official appointed township committee. So they're restricted by things that they can do as a legal entity of the township and things they can't do. Anthony takes over the reins this year as chair of the committee from John Custer. I think we should acknowledge John. He was the man that got this committee started. He's also been a guy who, in previous roles with the township, helped make some of the things happen that are in Newtown Township already. And John and some co-conspirators, I gather, who shall go unnamed, had a secret map of all their trail plans for Newtown Township, and that turned into their Trails and Greenways study that's now official. So this is the kind of thinking and advanced work that it takes, and I think we should acknowledge John. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So John has been involved in our township for so long. He was on the board of supervisors many years ago, and it's really him that's kind of been teaching me all the things that have happened, but to show the patience that this man has had for the amount of years he's been trying to get this through, and now that we do have that official trail map plan that was done in 2020, August 2020 was officially published, it's now setting people up like myself and the other people on our committee and the residents that are new. He did all that legwork, a lot of the other people he worked with for many years, and we're benefiting from that, already having that map. So now we're the execute team. That's what we're going to try and do to make sure that all that work goes to good use. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. I don't know if there is any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
Where will the presentations be posted?
So we are going to put them on YouTube, and then we will have a link on our website,
And as well.
which is www.
Well, yours or
Well,
ours?
first we'll put it on ours, then you'll link it to ours, havtwp.org. My name is Eileen Matola. You can always feel free to email me, and I will just send you the link also. And then Rich will put it on Havertrails.
Havetrail.com.
Oh, no, havetrail.com.
Where all the past seminars are also there. Every
Right.
speaker's notes.
So all the past Trail Summit notes, and did we record it all the other years?
Some years we have recordings.
Okay, and if we recorded it, it would be on their website. Okay, go ahead, question?
Just a really brief comment. The mainline greenway, which again, mainline greenway, not bike, don't know about it. But one of the original folks involved, Gene Burke, has just kind of pointed to Narberth Council. Narberth is going to do an official proclamation endorsing the mainline greenway. And Lower Merion is also right now consulting with Montgomery County on the planning process. I do think there's a little bit of a, oh, we have momentum and now we're pausing, but there's a lot of pieces of moving forward as well. So just wanted to share those. And in Haverford Township, we're going to be asked if we could also get on board and sort of endorsing, supporting. So NARBA's trying to push from where they are too.
Any other questions for anyone? Okay, great. Go ahead.
Scott Mates here. I've been involved in trails on the edge of it for a long time. I do the Hikes Philadelphia meetup hiking, and we do the entire Cobb's, Radnor to Valley Forge from the refuge and then back down to Darby, both hiking and biking, and all in 1 year in segments. They're easy to do. One question off of this that I do have though is Montgomery Avenue. When I was living in Lower Merion, of course, there was that old bikeway on Montgomery Avenue. Is there any possibility for Montgomery Avenue or the sidewalk that had been the substandard bikeway to be a route again from Kinwood to Ardmore, which is very important?
Can you answer that?
I can talk about it.
You can? Okay, good.
Yes, in old days, there used to be signs along Montgomery Avenue designating the sidewalk as being a bikeable sidewalk. The problem is it's, what, 4 feet wide? And people's hedges grew out 1.5 feet as they went up over and into the 4 feet, so there's no elbow room. It's kind of an issue. Montgomery Avenue, they've already widened it about as wide as they can. You know, most roads have a legal right-of-way that limits the width, and it includes the phone poles generally and the road signs that you see. And if those are right up against the curb, you know that they don't have any more width. And that's what they've done. In making it 4 lanes over the centuries, they've taken away all the space. And unfortunately, it's not a state road. It's a Lower Merion Township road. So anything that happens on there would fall, you know, financially all upon Lower Merion. I don't know what they can do, frankly. I don't know. And part of it, I think, is thinking like a bicyclist or a pedestrian and getting off the main roads and finding the back ways in, the low traffic stress roads.
There is a way back there, but there needs to be a trail.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
I don't need the microphone.
Chris is loud.
I'm Chris Whiting. I'm from the Haverford Historical Society, and I just wanted to point out 2 things. One, that Caracon Drive is closed every Sunday thanks to Jerry Park and some of the other commissioners for the road traffic. So that's every Sunday from dusk to dawn.
All year long.
The other is that the Haverford Township Historical Society and Rich Kerr and Peter and Rick Miller and other people have built a heritage trail in Haverford Township, over 100 sites that, you know, can be walked, driven, bicycled, and that's on trails.com. The last I have is to say that it's really encouraging to see 60-some people in the room, movers, shakers, doers. We've been doing this for a while here. I don't know how many years we've been doing this, 10 or 12 years. We've come a long way, and I appreciate everybody being here and being active. And thank you to the Recreation Department and Brian and Eileen for setting this up every year.
Thank you, Chris. 11 years ago, we held our first summit, and it was Tim Denny, the director of Parks and Rec back then, and Peter and I, and we hoped people might show up so we could ask them, anybody else interested in trails and bicycling? Anybody have any good ideas where something could be done? That's where this whole thing started, so it's been quite an evolution. We're very happy now to have the Delaware County itself involved in this directly.
Okay, question in the back. Go ahead.
Hold on.
The All Trails map was suggested or used in Middletown Township. Have all the other townships use that app? Because it's a, excuse me, a great app, and it might help move some of this along.
Does anyone have an answer for that?
So I can talk about that with our township, with Radnor Township. So one of the ways, I forget who was it that mentioned it earlier, mentioned the all trails, but that's right, Middletown. So it is widely used, it's free, it's a great resource. There's a lot of bad information on there. So it is important for the local communities to actually go in and walk them to track you. You then have to do that a bunch of times because of how poor the GPS data is sometimes and how it's moving you around. It's not that bad in most locations, but when you get into weird steep slopes and shielded areas, it can be a problem. So it's a great resource. I definitely think all the townships need to get involved in that. I know, John, we've talked about that in some of our meetings. So what we're trying to do is we do trail walks every month. We're trying to do them now even with our connecting townships. Like we had one last week with Radnor Township. We have another one coming up next week, same thing. And we will be tracking ourselves, and we're going to get multiple people doing it to try to make sure that that data is homogenized, I guess I'll say. So it is definitely a great resource, especially because it's free.
One of the problems is when you're doing things nationally or internationally, like Google Maps or All Trails, they're getting their data from other people. Quality control becomes an issue. And they will have pieces of many trails lined up as a single trail with a name somebody gave it, and it's wrong. What we've done is, and to get around that, Google Maps, for example, all the golf cart tracks in Lanark Country Club are currently shown as bikeways. Okay? You know, a computer algorithm is looking at the data and making decisions. Here's a thin paved thing, it must be, you know, a bikeway. What we've done is we've created on havetrail.com a trail map for all of Delaware County. And these are trails almost entirely that I myself have walked and geocoded with a Garmin device and tailored to the map. That's all there. They include the bikeable trails, the walking trails, the little paths in the woods, even some trails only little kids know about. And I've had one private owner call me and say, you know, take this thing out of my backyard. And I said, yes, sir. Easy to ask forgiveness later. But we've been aggressive about trying to map all the trails. The county also apparently has quite a database of trails, but I don't believe it's in a public form yet. But we've been trying to do that, and I started that and right before COVID hit, and then when COVID hit, everybody suddenly wanted to walk a trail. And then as COVID endured, everybody suddenly were tired of the trail they knew of and wanted to find another trail. And the map was really used very heavily at that time. So havetrail.com and look for the regional trail map, and you can break down into farther by municipalities or areas of the county. It also shows with detailed maps where the trailheads are, where you can get on a trail, not just a line, and where there's parking available, and whether it's lot parking or street parking. Anybody else?
Can I come up here? I'm Sarah Clark Stewart with the Bike Coalition. I just want to say, I think I came here to the second summit 10 years ago, and what has happened in this county is incredible. You guys have, I want to give, everyone should just give themselves a huge round of applause. Delaware County was kind of like way in the back, behind everybody else, and all of you have done so much to make it such a big difference. I don't want to necessarily, you know, point people out, but you all know who you are. But I will say, Elaine Schaefer, you are the leader. You are doing incredible things at County Council. You really are. And when I first met you, you were at Radnor, and then you went to school. Anyway, it's all coming up from the bottom, and it is penetrating. It is having an impact at the DVRPC. It's having an impact at PennDOT. What was announced about 291 is really a huge game changer. And that is because all of us have been talking about bike ped facilities, bike ped ability, you know, getting around using just your feet. It is now really becoming part of the DNA of PennDOT, DCNR, all the big decision-making entities in our region. And that's because you guys have been working so hard for the past 10, 15 years, 50 years, Bob Thomas. So I just want to say I'm incredibly inspired by all of you, and thank you and thankful. And we're really doing it, and we have a ways to go. So keep at it, and thank you so much, Rich and Peter, for putting this together and pulling all these wonderful folks. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, thanks.
Okay, that sounds like a great ending. So we had a great day. Thank you, everyone, for coming out, especially... Bob, you want to talk again?
Especially for walking. Two other resources that we use regularly in our office. One is OpenStreetMap. And again, it's not that one is better than the other. You have to look at all of them, but at least it tells you that, like the Belmont Plateau cross-country trail is there and it has all the mountain bike routes. If you're going walking and you happen to be on your way to the Hort Center and you live over in Winfield, that works. The other one is the mapping company. It's been out there since the late 1800s. They're really good. They figured out how to do cartography, and that's Michelin. They have maps on viamichelin.com. You can go in and they have multiple layers, like traffic, whatever. They actually have a humanitarian layer, which is where all the trails are, because I guess it's a humanitarian thing to do trails. Again, caveat, you got to check it out, but at least it tells you some things that you should be looking at. So those are two additional things besides Google and all trails, et cetera, that would be very helpful to many of you who are trying to just figure out where should we be looking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thanks to Peter Pugliese and Rich Carr. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to Brian Barrett. And thank you to all of you. So until next year. Now let's all get outside and get on the trails.